call this meeting to order. Chair entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair entertain a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Roll call by the clerk, please.
Kerry McGee,
Here.
Greg LeBoissonier,
Here.
Deb Bacon, Gary Cody,
Here.
Ian Dickson, Nicholas Gorham,
Here.
Ed Wazika.
Here.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask everybody stand and remove their hats. Town Sergeant, if you'd be so kind as lead us. Aye.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those who wish to remain standing for invocation, dear Lord, I pray that you guide us, always satisfy the needs that to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that we will be well-watered garden like a spring whose waters never fail. I pray that we will be fruitful. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive and let us be effective and decisive. Amen. Okay, Town Sergeant, emergency evacuation plan. Okay, the next item on the agenda is President's comments. I don't have a lot of President's comments. I am just going to express, this will be to the council itself. We're going to maintain decorum during our meetings. I give every councilor an opportunity to speak. If we act professionally, we'll get treated professionally. We lead by example. So if you want to speak, you all have the opportunity to be no shouting out the meeting. Thank you. And that's basically it I have. So the next item on the agenda will be approval of a town council minutes from January 13th, 2020.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. I should ask if there are any questions, any comments before we make the final? Seeing none, ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next
Carrie,
item?
excuse me?
Yes.
Can I make a motion to move an item forward at this time?
Absolutely.
Okay, can I make a motion to move E1, resolution appointing 2 candidates to the Juvenile Hearing Board?
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
All
you.
opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. I have, the chair will entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Earl Reed and Mr. James Kuipers to the Juvenile Hearing Board.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Is Mr. Reed and Mr. Kuipers here this evening? Okay, will you come up to the front, please? Okay, gentlemen, you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will be true and faithful unto this state and support the laws and Constitution thereof and the Constitution of the United States of America, and that you will well and truly execute the office of member of the Coventry Juvenile Hearing Board, for which you have been appointed in Coventry, Rhode Island, for a term ensuing or until another engage in your place, or until you be legally discharged therefrom, so help you God. And Mr. Reed, your appointment will expire December of 2022, and Mr. Kuipers, yours will expire also in December 1st of 2022. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, appreciate it.
Good luck and follow.
Thanks for
Okay, thanks again, gentlemen, for stepping up and volunteering for our boards and commissions. Like I say, well, I'm always, usually I fail to say that in President's comments, but I'm always looking for volunteers to, that want to put some time in. Let me just add to my President's comments, I did forget to say, we still are currently looking to put together a charter review commission. So I'm looking for any volunteers from the public that want to volunteer some time to review the charter. So please step forward to see the town clerk anytime during the day, or any of your council members, and step up, because we always looking for volunteers. Okay, Next item on the agenda will be the school department report. Madam Chairman, how are you today?
My report went flying and someone retrieved it for me, so.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present a report on a monthly basis to the town council. First up, I would like to thank Ed Wazika, John Arnett, Sarah Mangiarelli, Dave D'Agostino, and John Anderson for working so diligently on the contract with our new financial software vendor, Keystone Financial Systems. It looks like we could be operational with our new system sometime in late February, early March. So we're very grateful for that work. One of the areas of expenditures for the Coventry Public Schools is looking to reduce is our transportation costs. One area of focus is looking at the number of students on each bus, specifically at the middle and high school levels. We may implement an opt-in system where families would be asked to sign up for transportation services at the secondary level. A reduction of one bus could be as much as a $70,000 savings. Another area we are exploring options is in our out-of-district transportation costs. The unanticipated costs were $200,000, more than what we had budgeted last year. These are mandated services. We are researching the possibility of using Coventry Public School vehicles to provide some of these services instead of purchasing statewide transportation. We are also investigating the possibility of purchasing transportation services from the West Bay Educational Collaborative as a significant reduced cost, or purchasing minivans and hiring drivers to control expenses. Okay, the Coventry High School held their community night last Wednesday, January 15th. Or was it last? Maybe a week ago, before that. Our administrators, educators, and students did an outstanding job presenting an exemplary showcase of all of the high-quality opportunities that await these students entering Coventry High School in the fall. Approximately 500 parents and students attended this event. The feedback received from those in attendance was phenomenal. From the initial assembly in the auditorium that welcomed those in attendance to the continuous student and staff-led tours of the building to the displays of each program hosted by students and staff in the two cafeterias, there was a constant buzz. A highlight was when two sets of parents who had chosen to send their children to Pontigansett informed staff that they had changed their decision based on what Coventry High School has to offer. As a school committee, we are always focused on what we need to improve, but events like Community Night remind us of everything that we have accomplished as a school community. The NEASC visiting team will be in Coventry High School from March 1st through March 4th, reviewing our accreditation. Every faculty member at the high school has played a part in developing the accreditation report. I would like to thank Julie Macarone and Kristen Capwell for co-facilitating the NEASC accreditation process. The high school will be presenting their final review of the standards to the school committee prior to the NEASC visit. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Kathy. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda would be budget update from our finance director, John Arnett. Good evening, John.
Bear with me 1 second while I get this up and running on our side. All right. So this is a budget update for end of December. So this gives us halfway through the year. We are just waiting for this to go through. Again, very similar as layout as last time as far as moving through. However, I did incorporate the changes that were asked to made in the graphs to show previous year's budget compared to this year's budget and things of that nature. So there's a little bit change in the format, and we'll move forward. So as far as the collections are concerned, we're a little bit above target. This is due to prior year came in a little bit better, but as far as like dollar amounts, it's not really significant in terms of the overall budget. But overall, our collection rates are doing a little bit better than halfway. So we're going to keep an eye on this as we move forward through the year. Last year, we were cutting a little closer. I was biting my nails in May, but I think we're going to be doing a little bit better this year. So as far as the town hall expenditures, again, you can see that the graphs, I had to put it on two different axes. The first axis on the left is the two budget expenditures, and then the axis to the right is the dollar amount. So you can sort of see, again, it's a little confusing, but this is the only way that it can make it work. Otherwise, the information doesn't come across. So keep in mind as you go through this, keep your eyes on the left two of the four columns for budgeted expenditures as previous months. So you can basically see where we're standing on these. 2020, or for fiscal 20, so the blue, we're just about 50% as well on all of these line items, so pretty close. You can see the Board of Canvassers, the adjustment from year over year. You can see that percentage in 19, that we made that correction this year. Again, the Board of Canvassers is a very, very, very small budget of one individual. So, part two with tax tester treasurers and things of that nature, we are pretty much right in line again with that 50% mark. Again, that blue line. Probate court's a little lower. Tax collectors right on again, and board assessment review, which is just a board of assessors, very small. If it would just change over here. All right, cool. So we are now moving on to the police department. Again, a little bit higher on the total budget, over the 50% mark. So we did make it's a very tight budget this year as far as total expenditures to total budget. So Therese Stafford and I were looking quite intently at this, and I can't recall off the top of my head what is really driving that. But again, as you can see, most of them are hovering right around that 50% mark. But this is the police budget to targeted expenditures is the one that is a little bit more concerning, just because it's growing a little bit above that 50% mark as of this time. I'm going to just stand up. Next is Public Works. Public Works, again, you can see the budget. Overall, we're doing well. I talked to Kevin McGee today about this. He said that it was very similar to last year. However, they do have a little bit of an uptick in the springtime when it comes to recouping or taking care of vehicles, expenditures that break down over the winter, as well as roads, potholes obviously populate. And then on top of that, when we're talking about the snow removal budget, we're doing a little bit better this year. The snow is not as impactful this year. We moved it down a little bit, so that's why you're seeing that little bit of change. I was talking to him, so we still have I want to say 8 events for the year in the snow removal budget. So cross our fingers as we move through February. But overall, we're looking at DPW budget still below 50% and relatively really close to where the expenditures were last time. Planning and zoning, again, 50%. These are really small budgets, so dollar movements from one over the other, as you can see from the right axis, is relatively small overall. So you can see the fluctuations in these budgets, but 50%. Public library, we're sitting at 50% exactly this year compared to last year. Budget is, again, was the same. Human services, a little bit better, or a little bit more expenditures as far as percentage of the budget is concerned, but again, just under there. So really, we're looking right on target, and you can see Parks and Recreation as well. As requested, these are the special items as far as the contingency account number. You have a couple of these unknown or quote-unquote unbudgeted. You can't budget for every single thing to happen in any given year. So that's what our account is for. So we had an arbitration, emergency repair for the town hall, the system up there. It was been like 50 degrees in the library when it broke over the winter, so it was an emergency repair that we paid for. And then obviously FTM2, which gives our remaining balance of $210,000. Not much to really review right now. It's really a lot for me to do. It's the end of the audit. We are at the final stages of it. We have the draft audit I'm putting in with the state and back and forth, but we're at the very, very end. We got a little bit of a hiccup on a couple of different pieces which held it up, which was response from RIDE, the response from Angel Pension, and there's one other thing. And our auditor went on vacation for a little period. So there's a little bit of a delay in the overall process in January, but we're trying to get it completed by the end of the month. The budget process. So we've gone through all of the different budgets as of right now. I'm compiling, putting them all together, doing adjusting revenue. So year over year, I'm looking at the collection rates, seeing what needs to be adjusted. Specifically, when we're looking at the financial statements, which will soon be coming out, you'll see some revenue line items which should be adjusted to be more accurate going forward, more correct as far as the estimations. So this next fiscal year, we'll see that come to fruition in the budget. And with that, I'll open it up.
Does anybody from the council have any questions, any comments?
I just have a comment. Thank you
You're
for the
welcome.
contingency page. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Another good job, John. I appreciate it. If no one else has any comments, then thank you very much. We'll move on to the next step.
Welcome.
Okay, I see Madam Clerk, I'm doing your job for you, so I apologize for that. Will you read off B1, B6, I'm sorry, B6.
Report by Phil Conte on Stage 1 facility design for Coventry Public Schools.
Good evening, sir. How are you today?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Philip Conte. I'm president of Studio Jade. We are the architecture and engineering company that has been working with your school department in development of the Stage 1 application to RIDE and the School Building Authority. I can tell you that it has been a pleasure working with the administration. The school building committee that you have assembled is a robust group of individuals that have been very involved and impactful. I have the opportunity to work with a lot of communities. I could tell you that you are off to a very strong start. We are not here for any action item this evening. We were able to present to you a few pages of our application that I can quickly go over. I have it in front of me as well, and answer any questions you have. We will be back in February prior to our submission to RIDE of the Stage 1 application. If you're going to focus any of attention on the application, it's really the summary report. And it's really understanding what the Stage 1 application is, which is the definition of the facility needs within the school department. Then Stage 2, following a successful application, is to develop the solution that responds to that need. Just so you know, when we are ready to submit Stage 1 submission does not mean that you are endorsing any particular project, any particular dollar amount. It's not a commitment to bond. It is simply applying to the school building authority that Coventry Public Schools has a need, and this is our need. And upon their review and acceptance of it, they would then invite you to submit Stage 2, which is the solution to that need. The Stage 2 process is much more involved and requires a lot of coordination with the school department, town council, understanding financing, other logistics, timing, and schedule to develop the best solution that responds to the needs, but is also responsible to the community and to Coventry's willingness to go to a bond if they desire to do so. At this point in time, I could ask if you have any initial questions, or I could maybe highlight some of the events that we conducted in the stage 1 process, some of the things that we heard.
Yeah, once you do that, I mean, the last question probably after your presentation.
Sure. So the part of the process was twofold. One was a high-level educational visioning session with the school department that was conducted by a very well-known educational facility planner. And we developed a series of guiding principles that we wanted to keep in mind as we looked at the need within the district. And there were 7 that were developed. And those guiding principles included warm, safe, and inviting. We wanted the schools to be future ready. We want equitable access. Sustainability was important. Having that small school feel, but that large school pride. We wanted the schools to reflect the community values, and the schools should be considered a community resource. So in developing those guiding principles, we went and conducted family and community forums at all of the schools. Some of you had the opportunity to attend them. We had a number of activities that we engaged in there and gathered a better understanding of what the needs were at each specific school. Parallel to this, we conducted a facilities assessment condition, which followed the Jacobs assessment that was done a number of years ago. And we found that the Jacobs assessment report had maybe over $50 million in need. We came up with about $60 million, which is not unusual, given our experience in follow-up assessments a couple years later after that report. So you can imagine going forward that the task is to find that balance. What is that balance between addressing the immediate facility needs, but also addressing the educational adequacy of Coventry Public Schools? In the direction that the administration and the curriculum wants to go, the facilities should support that. So during that stage 2 process, that will be further investigated. Certainly, an option would be to only fix the things that are broken, and that's an appropriate response. However, it may not address some of the educational adequacy desires that the community and the administration have voiced. Your utilization rate is about 77%. So we could probably state that a new school building is really also not in the horizon. You do have facilities that need attention, but you certainly do not have an overcrowding problem. So somewhere in the middle is the most prudent path forward that requires a lot more discussion between the administration, again, town council, financing. One of the things we did as part of the exercises and activities was to ask people to sort of rank the guiding principles that were developed. And we provided a chart in your package. It identifies the school and it identifies the ranking of what was important, what was more important. All of them are important, but what was most important to that particular school. And when we were finished benchmarking all of them, the 2 things that came up were, number 1, they want a school that is warm, safe, and inviting. And number 2, they want a school that is future ready, which supports what we talked about, addressing the infrastructure deficiencies, but also creating that opportunity for educational adequacy across the district and exploring those 21st century teaching and learning opportunities. If you were to ask what an overall schedule would look like to the entire process, we're going to be submitting our stage 1 with your approval by February 17th. You would then be invited, upon acceptance, to submit a stage 2 and that stage 2 submission would be due on September 15th. So between February and September, that's where the work to develop the solutions to the needs is developed. You would submit that stage 2 application in September. Approval from the school building authority and council would be in November. And then it would be your choice to move forward with any type of bond vote via a special election. You should anticipate that any design work would take 9 months to a year, depending upon number of projects and path forward. And that construction would probably be at least a couple of years over the entire life expectancy of the plan. There was some questions about what are some other communities doing and the dollar amounts that they are seeking funding and approval for. So last year, Providence submitted a plan for $309 million. It was approved at $278. Newport will be submitting in February for about $115 million. Portsmouth, around $55 to $65 million. East Providence, a couple years ago, was for $165 million. Westerly was for $74 million, but Westerly did not pass its bond vote. That was the second time that Westerly had failed in a bond vote. There are lessons to be learned there that from our experience with Westerly from some time ago that we would obviously share. Cranston, $13.5 million, and Foster Gloucester, $5.5 million. So there's quite a range in what school departments are submitting for, but it also depends on what their need is and what that solution is. Let's see. I want to just conclude with what we said in that package that we left with you, which was a simple statement, is that when individuals are looking to buy a home, one of their first considerations is, particularly if they have school-age children, is the quality of the schools, not only the education, but also the facilities themselves, because they represent what you value as a community. So it is important to maintain the school facilities in the highest standard that you possibly can. And that you have set up a path forward to start doing that. And I can tell you, as I started the presentation, that you were off to a very strong start. And we'd certainly be happy to help you to the end with that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do have just a quick question. Is there any way this could be done? Because I haven't been sitting with all the meetings, but I would love to see this done so it could be at the general election, not a special bond referendum. Is that pushing it too much?
Yes, unfortunately, it will not be part of the November 2020. In order to do that, your stage 2 would have to be submitted in a couple of weeks, where we are submitting your stage 1.
Okay. That's all I have. Is there anybody else? Sure.
I just have a quick question. You're talking about a bond, and you're saying not the November 2020 election area. Where are you looking for a special election? What's the time frame?
So it has been our experience that when we submit in an off general election, that we would be recommending, following all the approvals and everything is received and you move forward, we would be looking at a special election possibly in the first quarter of 2021.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions from the council? Yes.
Mr. President, council members, I am a representative on this design committee, and I just want you to know that I have been attending meetings. It's a very robust group of people who are attending. It's very good attendance, very experienced group, composed of members of the community representing each of the 5 districts. So I think if any of you come to any of these open meetings, you would be very pleased to see how well the group is functioning. RIGL does require 2 council people to represent us on the design team, and we are ready to appoint a second person because the first person has been unable to attend. So we will have full complement at the next meeting. So thank you very much.
Are there any other questions from anybody from the council? Okay, seeing none, I think, yes.
I do have one more comment.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to remind everyone of the vote that they approved at the state level for that $250 million school bond in the last election. Statewide, Rhode Island passed that bond. Now is the time that you should be pursuing that money. You don't want all that money to go to all the other municipalities, and you miss the opportunity to bring some of that money back to Coventry. And in order, because there was a moratorium for such a long time on school building construction, the School Building Authority in RIDE has initiated a number of incentives to encourage school departments to move forward with school improvements. And those incentives vary. They also are focused on certain time limits and certain scopes of work. Right now, your reimbursement is 44% from Rhode Island Department of Education. There are a number of incentives that, with timely action, as we have set up in the schedule that we just talked about, you could achieve a higher reimbursement rate. For example, addressing deficiencies within the building, you could be eligible for an additional 5%. If you're doing educational adequacy improvements to schools, you could pursue another 5%. So your 44 is your base reimbursement rate, but the potential is for higher, 5, 10% higher. That's why we have encouraged school committees and towns to aggressively pursue the opportunity that is before them now. They do, I have heard that the legislature may provide another $250 million bond vote at the state level, but there's no guarantee that that could happen. So I'd like to see you take advantage of what's available now. That's all. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Conte, thank you very much. I appreciate it, your report.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, the next item would be B7, please.
District 1 update by Councilwoman Dickson.
Thank you. I just want to report on 2 items, the community forum that we held recently, and a note again on the Charter Review Commission. The second community forum this year was held November 23rd. It was hosted by our councilperson, Mr. LeBoissonniere, and our interim town manager, Ed Wazeker, and I. 34 people attended the forum. We rejoiced at that number because earlier forums last year, we had maybe 4 or 5 people. And so we're jumping incrementally and very well. We also, based on inquiries that I had via email and telephone calls, we knew that there would be certain topics that people would be very interested in that afforded us the opportunity to invite Rhode Island Senator Ratakis to come to talk about traffic issues that had been raised and also to talk about Camp Green. So we invited Mr. Russ Crossman to come to directly answer questions. And I think that that was a very good input that we had from those 2 outside people. I did post a summary of the meeting on Nextdoor, which is a social media site that does hit Western Coventry. And if there's anyone who would like an invitation to Nextdoor, all you need to do is send me an email and I will invite you to Nextdoor. Or you can send me an email at my Coventry Town Council address and I will get you on the Nextdoor invite list if you'd like to be there. We have already identified the next forum will be held Saturday, March 21st. And this time we're going to hold it at the town hall. So we'll be closer to Mr. LeBoissonnaire's district. but it will be for any voter. So it's not just for people in District 1 or District 2. It is for any voter who would like to come and, ask different questions. We have a real plus with Mr. Wazika coming to our meetings because he has a depth of knowledge and he's able to answer just about any question. So he's always prepared. So we're very grateful that he is attending with us. The next item is the Charter Review Commission. We have issues to address, and we need 9 people to form a commission. And thus far, only 2 people have responded. So I talked to Mr. Wazika last week, and this is our plan. If we can get 9 people, then we will form a commission, and that commission needs to report out by May so that we can be on the ballot for November. So any recommendations that are made by the commission will be made to the town council, and anything approved by the town council can be on the ballot in November. Short of having 9 members on the commission, this is what we will, how we will proceed. Our interim town manager is going to contact all town officials and ask them for suggestions for changes. He'll then work with our legal counsel to frame a motion for presentation to the town council for their discussion and their vote at that meeting or at a subsequent meeting. I will also meet with the 2 people who did volunteer to be on the commission, and I will meet with them and ask them for their input. I don't want to disclude people who have shown an interest, and I do want to get as much public input as I possibly can. So if there's any other person who may not want to be on the commission but wants to give input, I will be announcing the time and date for this informal meeting. These ideas that this group, informal group, will generate will be forwarded to Mr. Wazika, and then Mr. Wazika will then talk to legal counsel and then present these motions to the town council for discussion. So there's a good opportunity for people to come forward to discuss ideas for changes to the charter. And if we cannot do it with the commission, we will still seek public input and input from the town in order to get some motions on the table for consideration by the town council. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dickson. I have asked all the council members to, if they have a representative from each of their districts, to please forward the names to Mr. Wazika so he can get a hold of them and we can get moving. Time is of an essence to get moving on this. So please, the council members, find somebody from your district and forward them over so we can work on it. Okay, the next item on the agenda, consent agenda C1, please, Madam Clerk.
Approval of USGS request to rename Sawmill Brook.
Okay, I'm gonna let Mr. Wazika speak on this one. I guess there's been some, I was just mentioned that it was brought to our attention to change the name from a very racist name that was previous name of this brook. So, Mr. Wazika, if you would be so kind.
We received a request from the USGS, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, to change it to Sawmill Brook, and I am not even going to go into what the current name of the brook is. It's been changed a couple of times in history. It got from one really bad name to a slightly less. The town has not used the official name on any of our maps for a number of years, but it's an extremely racist comment on the name on the brook. The council simply is to agree to approve the name change. It's something that obviously we need to do, and like I said, this is not something this name has not been used in years. It does appear on the official federal, so that's why we need to fix this.
I see a lot of people wondering what it could be, what would a possible name, but I
I'm not even going into it.
I will just say that it was an N word that we were not very popular with, so that's not something that we want to be, supporting in any way. So, any comments from the council?
Listen, Councilwoman Bacon was polite enough to highlight and show me what the previous name was, and I would just like to propose a resolution that we accept the name change.
I didn't think it would be.
It is in your packets. Every one of you has the
We have a list
names
of
in
what
the
the name
packet.
was. It's not very good. But,
Are you making
so
that?
are you making a motion?
You making a
I
motion?
am making the motion.
Oh, wait, so we have a
Absolutely.
motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second.
Devil second. Devil second it.
Debbie, a second? All
Yeah,
in
we got
favor?
plenty of seconds. Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
No, thank you.
Yeah, right. So, okay, the next item, Madam Clerk, D1, please.
Renewal of firearm licenses, Mid-State Gun Company, Hawkins Machine Company Incorporated, Rhode Island Gun Works.
Okay, and we're going to take them individually, well, we'll do number 2 and 3 together, because Councilman Labasi.
I need to recuse myself from the first item.
All right, so why don't we just do the first item first? We've reviewed our packages and the applications. Anybody have any
Motion
questions?
for approval.
We have a motion for approval for Mid-State Guns. Anybody, we have a second.
I second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, the next item would be, we can do them together if there's no
2 and
questions, of Hawkins Machine and Rhode Island Gun Works.
One at a time. One at a time.
Wait a minute, no, we can do them both together. That's not, unless you have a question on either one of them separately, there's no reason why we can't do it together, so I'm,
I understood that as a request from Member Dickson, not a,
I didn't, but, is that what you're requesting?
Separately, yes, please.
All right, so you must have comments on it, all right, we'll do that, that's fine. Hawkins Machine, number 2. Any comments, any questions?
Motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The next one is Rhode Island Gun Works. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Do we have any comments, any questions? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, D2, please.
Renewal application for Robert Pinchenko for private detective license.
Okay, we've had a chance to review the application. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? If there's no questions and no comments, this is a pretty standard form. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
to approve, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda, with Madam Clerk.
New Class F liquor license for St. Vincent de Paul Society, Coventry, to be held at St. John and Paul Church Meeting Room, 343 South Main Street. Event on 2/29/2020.
Okay, with that being read,
All right. I would like to make a motion that we approve the license and waive the fees associated with the license.
Second.
we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. Next item, Madam Clerk, would be D4, please.
Application for a new victualling license. It's a new owner. It's Cortez Deltra, doing business as Coventry Nutrition, 47 Sandy Bottom Road.
Is there anybody here from that establishment? Would you like to come up and, first of all, we want to welcome you to town.
Hi,
How you doing?
very well, how are you?
Good, good. You want to explain a little bit about your business? I remember the previous owner in here last year, and so I see it's changed hands, so
Yes.
congratulate you.
So
and,
I've been doing this for 12 years. I actually have another location in Middletown, Rhode Island. So I'm coming to town and bringing some health and nutrition, smoothie replacement, supplements. Again, just trying to get the town healthy, and I'd love to do it.
Okay, and business hours or anything? I'm just curious.
7 to 3,
7
Monday
to
through
3,
Friday,
yeah.
Saturday, shorter hours.
Okay, great. Is there any questions from anybody from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Welcome to town.
Thank
Good
you.
luck to you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next item on the agenda would be E2, please.
We did E2.
Approval of
We did E1, so E2, please.
Approval of sewer tie-in located at 2-5 Union Street, Plat 63, Lot 3.
Okay, manager, you have anything to comment on that? I mean, it was done.
Everything's in order. You have your letter from the town engineer, all of the drawings, everything's been going through the process
It
correctly
was
at this
approved by
point.
the sewer
It was
subcommittee?
approved by the sewer subcommittee, and
Yep. Make a
just
motion
waiting
to
your
approve.
approval.
Okay, we make a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any questions, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is E3, Madam Clerk.
Resolution to authorize interim town manager to execute a fee agreement with Greenberg, Troreg LLP and to join Town of Barrington, ETALs versus State of Rhode Island, ETALs, case number PC 2019-10870, known as Evergreen Law Challenge in Superior Court as plaintiff.
Okay, we did have a discussion in executive session on this. I don't know if, Mr. Solicitor, would you be maybe so kind as to give a rundown to the taxpayers so they'll know what it's all about?
Sure. This is the lawsuit that was brought by a consortium of towns organized by the League of Cities and Towns, the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, to challenge a law that was passed by the General Assembly in the last legislative session, I think it was last June. It is a law that, in essence, provides that collective bargaining agreements remain in effect during the bargaining period and until they are renewed. It mandates that requirement on all cities and towns regarding a whole variety of municipal contracts that are made with the collective bargaining units of the unions of our state. So it would be in our town. So that would be, for example, teacher contracts, public works contracts, police contracts, firefighting contracts, and so the challenge was actually to two grounds: that it's a violation of the contract clause of the Rhode Island Constitution, and also of the cities and towns of our state to exercise home rule, which is a portion of the Rhode Island Constitution, Article 13, which allows cities and towns to govern themselves in local matters. And so that lawsuit was brought a few months ago. As I understand it from Brian Daniels, who is the director of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, they are either about to surpass half of the towns of the state, cities and towns of the state by population, or they've already surpassed it. I think it's 62% now. I'm not going to read all the names of the cities and towns who have joined the challenge, but it's significant and it's growing. There are, as I understand it, a couple towns coming online very soon, Cumberland and Gloucester. And there are a couple more who are considering, as this council did tonight, whether to come on, or will tonight, I should say. So the fee for the town of Coventry is graduated depending on how many stages the litigation proceeds to. The first stage is, it's in the resolution, I think it's $5,000, a little more than $5,000 in the first stage. I think it's thank you, $11,000 in the second. Then ultimately, if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, it would be about $26,000, a little more than that.
The second stage is actually 16,000.
I thought it was 16. Yeah.
16 to 11,000 more than the first stage.
Yeah. Thank you. The second stage, let me correct that, is 16,000. So that's the cost to the town of Coventry as projected by the law firm of Greenberg Troreg, which is a Boston law firm. But it's one of its principals is the former mayor of Providence, whom you may know. His name is Angel Tavares. He is leading the lawsuit challenging this law. So that's really it, Mr. President, unless you have any questions or comments.
I'm going to entertain a motion. I mean, any other comments from anybody from the council?
I'd just like the public to know that our cost is based on our population. So we are, it's a proportion of the total cost based on our population. And we have about, right now, among the cities and towns that have bought into this, we're about the 6th highest population in the state that has bought into this program. So our cost may go down if more cities and towns do participate.
Now, there are a lot of a lot of variables. I mean, it may not even go past the first stage. I mean, the General Assembly will be meeting again. There could be possible changes. I mean, we're just at the really early stages of this, so we don't know how far it's gonna get involved, but that's soon to be seen, I mean. Any comments, Mr.?
No, Mr. President, I don't have any comment. I just have a motion for approval.
There's no other comments.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, would be item E4, please.
Resolution that the town council rescinds and removes the additional fees contained in Town of Coventry Resolution Number 55-18-4967 in regards to processing and background checks required for applicants to carry a concealed weapon.
Okay, I brought this resolution forward because it was brought to my attention by a few groups that the state law states that they shall charge no more than $40 for a permit, a concealed carry permit. And there's several towns in the state of Rhode Island now that are getting involved in a lawsuit. And I didn't think, we passed this resolution last year unknown to us that the state law was that $40 fee. And we passed it after discussion with the police department, a $250 fee, I believe, $240 fee.
An additional $200
On top of the $40.
on top of the 40.
So it was a total $200.
And an additional 50 on the renewal, on top of the 40.
So I think we gave out 30 permits last year, 29 permits this year. It's just not worth us getting into a lawsuit to make $4,000 or $5,000 on permits. I didn't want to face, the legal fees that are going to be involved. If the state law is $40, then I just felt it was in our best interest to do what the state law says. Mr. Manager, do you have any other comments on that?
Just that the Attorney General's office, who processes a lot more than these, who, as we well know, will add any fee that they can legally. They believe the statutory limit of $40, because it does say shall, is what's appropriate. They have never raised their fees. Due to that, I highly recommend that we remove the higher fees that were instituted back in August 27th of 18.
I'm sure that the police department does a lot of work involved, and it probably doesn't justify the work at $40 fee. However, it's a state law, and we would spend that much on legal fees just defending a lawsuit that there's no need for the town of Coventry to get involved in. So, comment?
Mr. President, given the fact that this council had the forethought to vote unanimously to make Coventry a Second Amendment sanctuary city, I think it only fitting that when it comes to carry concealed permits, that this council vote to approve the change to our own resolution to bring it back within the state guidelines. So I'm going to make a motion for approval.
Okay, are there any comments before we,
Yes, I guess a question for Nick.
Yes.
Nick, hi.
Yes.
Just in our listed fees in our ordinance for this, so I guess we would have to change our ordinance also, correct?
that's what this is.
I
Well,
think
no, this
that's,
is a resolution, correct?
well, I think the increase was done by,
By resolution.
it wasn't done by ordinance.
No,
So,
but our
to the
ordinance,
extent, yeah,
I just want to make sure, because it says pistol license to carry is a $2 fee. So do we
Right.
need to change the ordinance?
It's obviously outdated.
That's a great question, and
I mean,
nobody can deny that you read everything. I am impressed.
That paper she's reading it from, so old, it's yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ran out of white paper.
Can we, can I look into it? It sounds like you may be right.
I just printed
Again,
it, today.
So, if we should amend it, I'll let you know. I think you're probably right.
But we can change it right
It
now
was-
by
yes.
passage of this resolution.
Absolutely. It was
Okay.
raised by resolution, perhaps,
Okay.
not entirely appropriate. It can be, but it can be, we're just erasing the raise to 220.
And if you would look into whether it should be passed an ordinance changed, and, look
Yeah.
into that, we'll do
We can
that.
do that.
I do have another question.
Sure.
Because it does say, whereas the addition of the approved fees may be in conflict, so it's, kind of influx there. So I do have a question. You just said that we handed out 30, approximately 30, and approximately 20 this year.
30 this year, there were 29 that were issued last year, most of those prior to the change in August. I don't have the exact number from the passage of this and how many paid, how many were in process prior to the 200. Just realized this earlier about the date change, so we were looking. There's only a couple of them as well, 35 or so total for the last year
About
plus.
refund? Okay. Okay, so there would be no refund
No.
given.
That was the law at the time, so.
Okay. Just asking.
My positive resolution still my positive recommendation still stands on the resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have
And
a
a second.
We have a second. You have a question? Peter?
No, I do
Okay,
not.
we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda, get caught up here, would be E5, please.
Resolution approving easement from Kent County Water Authority across a portion of Plat 20 Lot 9.1 southwesterly on Monroe Drive and easterly on Old Mishnock Highway for the purpose of maintaining an existing sewer line belonging to the town of Coventry.
Mr. Manager, you ready to give a report on that?
This is something that actually began a number of years ago. The line has been in place. They never formalized and finalized what do you call it, the resolution, so it's up in front of you to approve it, so.
And the solicitors looked it over, and you've discussed it with the Kent County's solicitor, and we're good? Or-
I've looked it over. I haven't discussed
Okay.
it, but
Well, if there was any need, I imagine you would have.
yeah.
Okay, so, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Actually, I have, no, I do have quite a few questions. Well, because I was trying to understand this, so I did go through all the Kent County meeting minutes, which dated back to March 16th, 2005. That's when the first time it was brought up. It was brought up again in 2006, again, one more time in 7, and then again in 19. So I just have a question. How did this come forward again from 7 to 19?
Their attorney, the Kent County Water Authority attorney, sent us the package on it in the
Okay.
request.
Okay, the November 21st meeting for Kent County Water Authority, our representative was there, and Mr. Crossman, and he stated he would like, Mr. Crossman suggested that Coventry should put a camera in the line now. Is there any issue going on with this line?
No, none. It was,
Strictly.
yeah.
No, I'm just asking because he's saying to put the camera down now, so I'm
I
just
don't know, I
wondering.
don't know what the minutes say and why they say it. That's how you would check the line.
Every 5
We have to
years.
check it every 5 years. That's how you would check it, when it needs to be checked.
Okay, I'm just asking because I went through all the meeting minutes. So I guess, Nick, these are the questions for you. This sewer easement deed, first off, no all men buy these presents. It should be no all these men, women.
I'm not going to disagree.
So I would
You
like,
won't win.
I didn't draw this, but I'll take the bullet.
Right now, it should be no all these its or people.
but it doesn't state who the grantee is. It also does not have the plat lot, the AP plat lot listed anywhere in here. It also contradicts what's in the letter from Patrick Sullivan, because in there he is saying every 2 years, but in the deed agreement, it is saying at least every 5 years. And one of the recommendations,
The reason for the change is because you got the letter, I believe you got the attachment in there from the engineer. He had reviewed, he had gone through this easement as well, and he had recommended the change be made to the 5 years. The letter came in with the packet. I contacted Mr. Sullivan's office, requested the changes that the engineer had requested. They were done, and they came in, and they, in fact, just came in on Friday, right before the packet went out.
Okay,
There are a couple of other things that will probably get changed on this, and I will make sure that you get it if you need to. The lot I did notice was not in there.
It's on the
Not
resolution.
Wait a
yet.
minute.
The
The plat-
mapping stuff is though, and that shows it all on the map as part
Well-
of it, on the attachment.
Can
Okay.
I just, I'll answer your questions when you're ready. I think you were directing them to me.
yeah, I
Do you want me to, do you want me to answer some of them now, or?
Oh, sure.
Okay, there is a grantor, it's the Kent County Water Authority. Plat and lot is not an adequate description. It's not an adequate legal description. It does not need to be included. It is handy, I agree with you on that, but it's not necessary.
Okay,
The
because,
Supreme Court has actually found it to be inadequate to describe property when conveying.
so if you were to read this,
Yeah.
how would you know what property that we're referring to?
It's described. That's it. That's,
In
there
the
are,
sewer
there-
easement deed?
yes,
Okay.
the clerk's office records deeds every day that have a description like that don't necessarily have a plat and lot.
Okay, because it doesn't tell you where it is. So, all right, so I do.
Well, it does. The
I-
description tells you exactly where it is, and
Okay,
that's
so
all that's required.
I don't read it there, but that's okay.
Okay.
So if you go to Exhibit A, I believe it is, or
Yep.
B, I'm not sure, because these are all right here, legal description, the assessor's plat.
Yes.
And if you go to,
Which has the plat and lot on it, by the way.
which, hang on, if you go to page 100 of 142, if you look
Yeah.
on this one, on page 97, it says Assessor's Plat 20, Lot 9.1. But if
Right.
you go to this one, it says AP Lot 55. So your Assessor's Plat and your lot do not match. Then if you look through,
That's this. That's a different lot, respectfully.
okay, but
Council
do you
member,
see? do you
that's reference to a lot owned by private parties.
And, okay, and it's referenced in here, but where is it referenced? I just want to make sure that.
It's
we
not
have-
referenced in the survey as a plat and lot. It's referenced in the title to the legal description as a plat and lot. And again, if the description is accurate and the survey is accurate, that supersedes any reference to plat and lot.
Okay, well, if you look at the coordinates, which they have, where it says south 632607,
Yeah.
with it running 148.26 feet. But on
Which
here,
page are you
right
on?
here, right here, this one, on page 97 of 142.
Okay, just a moment.
That's under the legal description.
Okay, yeah,
Okay, so you look there, you go on the plat, you go on this map right here,
yeah.
the feet are different. It is 183.37 feet. So this does not match.
Let me see, what section were you referring to in the,
right here.
on page 97?
Yep, page
I know you-
97,
Yeah,
right here, 6326.7, right here.
yeah,
See, it's
that's
the
a,
first
that's
one?
an angle.
Yes.
That's not
and
a
that's right.
not a distance.
I understand, and running 148.26 feet.
Right,
When you look on the map right here, it has different footage, it's 183.37. And,
that's not calling out the length of the easement, that's calling out something else.
okay, I just want to make sure, because these
It's
numbers
okay.
these numbers weren't matching up, so I just want to make sure, that's
It-
all.
It's and for what it's worth, the legal description supersedes everything else anyway. That's what is the legally operative document.
And
So,
can you just show me in the deed where it does specify the exact, where the sewer? I just want to,
Mr. Solicitor, have you looked over this?
I did, and I'm comfortable with it, and I'll just answer the question though. The legal description is the description of where it is. There is no, you don't get you know, there's no better way to guide, there's no better way to describe property than the legal description. That's
But where
the,
is the legal description of the property in here? That's what I'm trying to ask you.
it's kind of a conundrum. You're asking me, where is the legal description in the legal description? And my answer is, it's in the legal description.
Mrs. Bacon, Exhibit A listed in here, in the easement, in the legal description is Exhibit A.
Right.
Okay, so, all it shows in here is the proposed 40 sewer easement, see detail A, and it's a line,
No, the legal description you have, that is Exhibit A.
which none of the numbers add up to Exhibit A. I would like this tabled so we can go over this in more detail, because I don't feel, I just don't see the legal description. And
Well,
I do have another question.
Well, go ahead and ask the other
Can I-
question, but the solicitors looked this over, and in my eyes, he's comfortable with it, and if you don't want to approve it, that's fine, you have the vote.
I just want to make sure
Okay.
we have it accurate.
I do
that's all.
too, but like I said, I have faith in the solicitor, he's looked it over, and he's made his decision on, he's accepted it, he's fine with it. I'm not a lawyer, I don't understand all the legal, the legal
just wanna
descriptions.
make
They use
sure
meets
it's-
and bounds, they don't always use feet, so there's a
I
lot
mean,
of different ways to look at it.
the-
But go ahead, what's your other
Yeah,
question?
the only reason why I'm asking, this has been going on since 2005.
Well, that's why we
and
want to settle
nobody's.
it now, we'll get
But
it.
if we
there any
wait and make sure that
Exhibit
we're
B?
comfortable with everything.
Well,
Exhibit B.
our solicitor is comfortable.
2025 again.
Well, we
We
can
keep
put it
on
on our
putting it down.
next.
We keep on putting, I don't know why it took this long, but,
Well, it's never come before
but
council.
if it's there,
No,
you know.
no, it hasn't.
But I do have another,
Yeah, go ahead, you ask
I
the
have
other
another
question.
question, and I'm just asking.
Yep.
It states in here, please be advised, I represent Kent County Water Authority. As you know, there is a pipe that Coventry installed over their property located in a wellhead protection. Now, when you say installed over, did the town of Coventry install a sewer line over the water lines?
It must have been done by a previous contract.
So we have sewer lines going over water lines?
That's a common practice. They just insulate you have to be so many feet away, but they do go over water lines as long as they're protected.
They're
That
not
is a
protected because it's in the meeting minutes.
I
that they're
believe
not.
that Mr. Sullivan's allegation in his letter was contested, but I understand that the resolution was to do the sewer easement deed. And I see, just to get back to your other issue, which was Exhibit B, Exhibit B is referenced in the deed, all right? The sewer easement deed, which is on page 93. But it just says it's shown on Exhibit B, which gives me further comfort and confidence that Exhibit B is somewhat demonstrative, but it is not the end-all. The end-all is the Exhibit A, the description. And I know that your contention is it is hard to reconcile Exhibit A and Exhibit B, but even if you could not, which I don't see that the way you do, Exhibit A would control. It's acceptable. And that's all I can tell you.
All right, I don't know if your questions were answered, but you can vote accordingly, because I'm going to entertain a motion.
So can we just table it to our next
You know,
council
I
meeting
think
so
it's
we
been
can just
tabled for so many years, I think we're finally, the solicitor's given his opinion that he's comfortable with it. If he's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. Does anybody else have any questions for the council?
I just have a question. Mrs. Bacon, what is it that you would like to have resolved by tabling it? So I just want clarification.
I just want to make sure that these, we have an attorney's letter that doesn't even state the property that he's referring to. So if you were to read this letter, you have no idea. Yeah, so we don't know. And given the fact that this has been an ongoing issue and there were some legal documents that had to be forwarded over, and I can give a copy of the meeting minutes to everyone, but I just want to make sure this has been an ongoing issue and no one seems to have done anything with it since, like I said,
Yeah, this is the first time it's been
2005.
brought to our attention,
And
absolutely.
I just don't understand why if we table it for another meeting, it's never come before council before. I just don't know why, just so we can have all of our questions asked. That's all.
Just for my.
Just to verify that we have the exact property that we're looking at. I just want to make sure that if we're doing this, we have the exact property.
My question is it that all we're doing, are we agreeing that they're giving us an easement?
Not to say the property.
Over their, they own the
Sewer line
property,
in
it's
their
their property, and
property.
they're giving us an easement over, through their property line.
Correct.
We've got nothing to lose on this.
I don't understand, you know, I mean,
On their property, it's not like we're giving them.
yeah, we're not giving them anything, they're giving us, they're allowing us, or they,
10 years ago.
and after all this time, they're asking us to approve the easement that just never got approved.
Well, actually, the town of Coventry asked for the easement way back then, and it had to go through some major. legal
Requested it,
hoops.
and obviously there had to be an approval of some, by the Kent County Authority to allow us to go through the property at some point, but now probably nothing formalized as an easement. And I believe that's what all we're doing is formalizing that at this point, because the sewer line already exists, does it not?
Here again,
Good.
I think we've gotten an opinion from the solicitor. This has been dragging on for a while. I mean, you can vote accordingly. I mean, if nobody entertains a motion, then so be it, but I'm gonna entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Ayes have it. Okay, the next item on the agenda would be, item E6, please, Madam Clerk.
I'm gonna ask that we hold off on this one. I was waiting for additional paperwork from Cox that has not come in. So
Okay.
we're gonna hold this off until the next meeting.
Okay, no problem. So the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, would be F1.
Mr. President, can we
Yes.
get a quick break before we start public hearing, please? 2 minutes.
All right, why don't we just take a few minute break and, it's a good idea. Call this meeting back to order.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, if you would, F1, please.
Okay, so public hearing for discussion and/or action. Application by Gregory Stevens for new Class B liquor license, FCI Restaurants LLC, doing business as Pat's Italian, 1650 Nooseneck Hill Road with victualling.
Okay, I guess the chair will entertain a motion to open public hearing.
Motion?
We have a motion, and we have a second. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, public hearing is open. Do we have anybody, Mr. Gregory Stevens? Oh, you're right in front of me, okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, you want to just give us a little bit about your restaurant? First of all, welcome to town. I'm glad to see you moving in town. I've heard a lot about your restaurant. I've never been there, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. So would you please so kind as to...
We're an Italian restaurant out of Johnston. We've been around for about 13 years now. We pride ourselves on home-cooked, made from scratch Italian food. We've been named the best tomato basil sauce in Rhode Island at one time. Our sauce can be found at Dave's Supermarkets and Shaw's Supermarkets. We're all about the food. We want a liquor license, but it's a supplement to the food. It's a glass of wine, a beer, or a martini or something with dinner. We open for dinner only from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We're not a drinking establishment. We have a beautiful lounge. The whole place is being remodeled as we speak. It should be done probably another week or two. We're really excited about opening up in this area. I grew up in Coventry, went to school in West Warwick, so I'm very familiar with the people here and what they deserve, and they deserve a good Italian restaurant right here in town. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm all about the food too, so I'm glad we're an Italian restaurant. I love Italian food, so. Actually, yeah, like I said, we welcome you to town. I don't know if anybody from the council has any comments, any questions?
Yeah, sure.
What days, you said it's 4 to 9. Is it Monday through Friday?
Tuesday through Sunday.
Tuesday through Sunday. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to open up the floor to anybody from the public who has any comments. Anybody want to say anything concerning this restaurant? Seeing none. Okay, Mr. Town Sergeant?
I've been in there frequently, it's fantastic.
There's a guy that's eating at the Pat's in Johnston, and he'll tell you.
I've been on Saturday. It's excellent. It's the best Italian food around.
It's a great location.
Yeah,
We've
it
seen a
is.
few establishments coming
And they
over
do
there.
a
It's a great
fantastic
location.
job.
Great.
You'll be
Well,
proud to have them here.
Good, good.
I know Mr. J down at the Havana Smoke Shop down the street is so looking forward to you opening up.
Mr. Joyle?
Yeah, so looking forward to you opening up.
I'm so looking forward to him opening up.
Oh, stop it.
So,
Except
is there any-
you'll have to keep my separate gluten-free menu set aside there for,
Make
for
a-
all that good, I'm sure
Make
you
a motion,
do.
we close public hearing?
Okay, we have a motion to close public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we'll, I guess we'll make a motion to accept the application.
This is,
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Sir, welcome to town and thank you.
Welcome.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda would be F2, please.
Public hearing regarding proposed amendment to zoning ordinance Article 10, earth removal / sand and gravel extraction.
Okay, why don't you, Mr. Solicitor, why don't you give a,
Do you want to open the public hearing? or-
yeah, it's true, I'm sorry about that, yeah. The chair will entertain a motion to open public hearing. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing is open. Mr. Solicitor, if you, want you to give a rundown?
Sure. This is an amendment to the portion of our zoning ordinance. It's called Article 10, but what it really does is it regulates earth removal, sand and gravel extraction, and so forth. The amendments are really to make the zoning ordinance conform with law. The Zoning Enabling Act, which is the law for all zoning ordinances. And it provides that only the Zoning Board of Review can serve in the capacity that is described in Article 10. For many, many years, our zoning ordinance, Article 10, has provided that the town council can issue licenses for earth removal and sand and gravel extraction. I'm familiar with that type of activity, and generally speaking, it requires for a town council to license something, it requires a specific grant from the General Assembly, and there is none. I went twice just to be sure. I went all the way back to the 1930s, and there is no grant to the Coventry Town Council to regulate by license earth removal in the fashion that Article 10 does. On the other hand, the Zoning Enabling Act does allow the Zoning Board of Review to do the exact same things. And so, with some minor exceptions just about procedure and so forth, as between the Planning Board and the Zoning Board, this, in my opinion, makes Article 10 comply with the Zoning Enabling Act and protects our town for the future when we have any applications, as we may, for any type of sand and gravel extraction or earth removal, mining, or anything of that type. So that's really the explanation. I think it's a good thing for the operators in town who have, there are some earth removal, sand and gravel operations in town. This is better for them because it gives them certainty. They know that if they come to the zoning board and get the relief they need to do what they want, that they'll be able to do it without any questions about whether it's legal or not.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Does anybody from the council have any questions? Mr. Cody, why don't you start off?
I've got a couple of questions and maybe an opinion or two. First of all, I believe that the council is the ultimate licensing authority on behalf of the town of Coventry. So when you say that by law, the council cannot issue a license, I'm not sure I agree with that, and you may indeed be right.
Okay.
But in my opinion, the council sits as the ultimate authority for the taxpayers in the town of Coventry with the authority to issue licenses to do business within the town of Coventry. We certainly do it
Actually,
on a weekly basis with every other business that goes on in the town of Coventry.
Well,
Second-
respectfully, the ultimate authority in Rhode Island on all law is the General Assembly. There's absolutely no question about that. And there are a number of Supreme Court cases that say that if you want to license something or regulate a business, particularly regulate a business, you have to have some type of enabling authority from the General Assembly, and we simply don't have it for this activity.
The other thing, and I read it over, it seems to me that what it says is that everybody who currently has a gravel operation in the town of Coventry, no matter what they're standing, now has to come before the zoning board of review and apply for a special use permit that will have to be renewed every 2 years upon completion of a new application and information and any new information that the zoning board of review requires for approval of that special use permit. Am I reading it wrong?
What section, could you just direct?
1011.
I'm sorry, that's, what page number is
Page
that?
105 out of 142.
105.
I did spot that out also.
Oh, a special use permit is required from the zoning board of review for the following uses and activities in addition to those defined in Article 2 as earth removal.
1013, which is
Okay,
page
1013, yep,
106.
yep.
A special use permit issued by the zoning board of review pursuant to this article shall remain in effect for 2 years.
Yes.
Said special use permit may be renewed for an additional 2-year period after review of the application and the compliance history of the applicant. The zoning board of review may ask the applicant for additional information as needed. Any application for removal shall include site plan, showing excavation and extraction activities to date and new areas where such activities are proposed to take place and site restoration plan.
Yes. It says especially, so just to go back to the beginning, I'll try to explain my point. A special use permit issued by the Zoning Board of Review pursuant to this article shall remain in effect for 2 years. That's only for special use permits that the Zoning Board of Review has issued. To my knowledge, it has issued none. So it doesn't affect,
No, what I'm asking is,
okay,
our current operations that are doing business in the town of Coventry,
yes.
are they gonna fall under this new zoning change and now have to come in to the zoning board of review and apply for a special use permit to continue to do business in a gravel bank and a mining operation within the town of Coventry?
The ordinance no doubt applies. The question is how? And the answer, I believe, is, and this is in the zoning ordinance we have right now, as well as in the Zoning Enabling Act, to the extent that there are existing operations that fit within the description.
Well, as I read this,
Well, let me try to finish the explanation
Yeah.
respectfully, Member Cody. To the extent that there are operations in town that fit the description set forth in this amendment, they would be legal non-conforming uses because they did not get a special use permit. To my knowledge, most of the operations in this town never went to the zoning board because they didn't have to.
correct, but
All
this,
right,
this
so-
new
so now
ordinance
there-
says they have 6 months
No, it doesn't
from
say.
from
What-
this
all right.
ordinance being enacted to come in and apply.
What page are you on now?
I'm trying to find where I
106,
read it.
Section 1021. But if you look at 1011, after we decided special use permit, it does say including both new and existing facilities.
Just a minute. So you're talking about 1021?
1011, it starts with 1011.
1011 is on page
Thanks.
105.
Okay. Right, but where is it that they have, I thought your question was, don't existing operations, aren't they required to come in within 6 months? I don't,
That one would be under 1021.
1021, right. I'll read it just so we can all be on the same page, perhaps even including members of the public who might be watching. Before a landowner or operator may extract sand, gravel, or other materials from his or her property for commercial purposes, a special use must be applied for and obtained from the Zoning Board of Review. Owners of a similar existing facility must apply for a permit pursuant to this article within 6 months of the effective date of this ordinance, to the extent any use of land or operations thereon are not legal non-conforming as provided in Article 8. And that's what I just said. They may be, and I'm not going to give a blanket declaration here tonight,
Right.
because that would be irresponsible and dangerous.
Agreed.
But to the extent that they may be legal non-conforming uses, then it may be that they don't have to comply with that section. And that will be sorted out in practice. It looks to me like they probably wouldn't be. But I'm not going to state that as a legal conclusion here.
I don't
again,
expect you to, Nick.
all
I
right.
don't expect
But
that.
I think we took that into account. And remember, all we're doing is conforming something that the council purported incorrectly, in my opinion, to have the power to do for many years. And we switched it over to the zoning board. That language, the 6-month language, was in there all along. And by the way, nobody ever came in for a permit. So, again, because there is such a well-established record of law in zoning, and in particular with sand and gravel banks, I think the switch is a great thing for the town, but it's also a great thing for the businesses in town who want to be able to operate, because now they have the advantage of a lot of that law that's clear and delineates what can and can't be done. So I think it's a win-win for both the town and its businesses.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%, that this is a good ordinance change for the town. What I'm trying to get clarification on, and I believe I have, so thank you,
Okay.
is the fact that we're not going to be forcing existing businesses that have been doing this within the town of Coventry for the last 20 years. We're not going to now either enforce them to jump through hoops that a new business would have to go through, or put them out of business.
Correct.
That's all I was trying
And
to
I
get clarification
think we've addressed
on.
it. And again, I'd rather just let the process play out as it might with our planning and zoning department, and we'll deal with the questions as they may arise as we go down. But
Very good.
Thank you for the
your time.
question.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Are there any other council members that have any comment, any questions?
Mr. President and members, I have several questions.
Sure.
First of all, one of them has to do with process section 1026, 1021, 1028. Based on what I'm reading, an applicant for a gravel operation has to request a special use permit.
Yes.
The application is then to go to the planning commission, the town planner, and the town engineer.
Yes.
Then it says in 1025 that once planning determines that the application is complete, then in section 1026, this is all over the place, 1026, the planning commission is going to give advice.
An advisory opinion.
Advisory opinion to zoning.
Yep.
It does not say that the engineer has any input anymore. So in 1021, we say that this information about the special use permit request is going to go to the town engineer. But the town engineer is never, when you go through the process, ever asked again or ever for any
all right.
information.
All right. I
So
understand
that's-
your question. That's a good
so
question.
That's a process.
You can,
That's number one process question, yes.
Sure.
Go
All
ahead.
right. You can thank the General Assembly for that, because they enacted, you'll find it at Title 45, Chapter 24, Section 49B. That says, it's 49A and B. It says that with regard to a special use permit, that the town planning board, if the council opts to invoke this option, it can be required that the planning board give an advisory opinion to the zoning board as to the merits of the proposal on any use, not just sand and gravel, but anything. And we have that everywhere in our ordinance. The zoning ordinance is replete with uses which have to go through the special use permit process and go to the planning board for an advisory opinion as well. We've eliminated some of those in the last couple of years because it was so cumbersome for some of the uses, but by and large, it's still practiced by the planning and zoning boards in their administration of their duties under the zoning ordinance. So this is something that is...
I thank you for that clarification, but I'm asking that this ordinance has been rewritten, and it clearly states that the town engineer is supposed to receive information.
Yes.
But the town engineer is never asked to
Oh.
give any opinion whatsoever, even though the other groups are. So I don't understand why we are not including
Actually-
the opportunity for the town engineer to give input also.
To make a recommendation?
Well, okay, the reason for that is that the Zoning Enabling Act doesn't give the town engineer the authority to give an advisory opinion to the zoning board. However, the town engineer, I think, always exercises a great deal of influence with the planning board and the zoning board if called upon to testify, because his or her opinion, the engineer that is offered with the town's welfare in mind. And so I can only say that it's not in there explicitly because an advisory opinion can only be given by the planning board. But the process is such that I think the town engineer is always an essential part of the review process.
I would like to, in some way, have it written in here that the planning commission before he gives an advisory opinion to zoning, would solicit information from the engineer too and include that information.
You know, I thought there was something in there, but I thought it was in the
I
bond
didn't see that.
section. The
I-
bond,
In 1021, it's saying that the engineer, it looks like each of those bodies separately, all of whom shall make a recommendation to the zoning board of review. So the engineer is not even going through the planning department or the planning commission from 1021 and then into 1026. I'm sorry, I don't have my mic
Yeah,
on.
this ordinance is difficult to follow for process because there's some pieces in one section, pieces in another section, pieces in the third section. So I want to raise that for your consideration. I'd like to go
Just
to,
to tighten up a
to
little bit.
tighten it up, I'd like to go to another issue that's near and dear to my heart, and that is noise.
Yes.
Gravel operations, I've lived near them. They are very noisy operations. There is nothing in this ordinance that tells me how we're going to monitor noise levels so that we can protect those residents who may be within the sound of these operations. Now, I did a search on Google for our own documents. We have 2 pages of references in our codes that refer to noise.
right.
I do not know what kind of noise standards we would be applying to a gravel operation and how we would be able to monitor that noise in order to protect the residents who would live in that area. In addition to that, we're trying to tighten up all our noise ordinances so that we have some standards in this town. And right now, I'm not sure what would apply to a gravel operation. And thirdly, if this is my third point, if a new operation came into town and we had not standardized on some kind of noise levels, would that new operation be required to uphold the new standards or not?
I believe that all businesses have to comply with our noise ordinance right now.
Which one?
Well, there's a,
There are several.
Can I say that 1031 does address the noise, it doesn't get above the decibels, but 1031 does address how it would be 600 feet back from the property line with noise berms put around, if it got involved when it was a rock crushing
Right.
operation. For the most part, it'll just be mining, which is a load of trucks, yeah. But if it got into
Yeah.
crushing, it does address some noise control.
by the way, I knew town engineer was in here. It's in 1032.
1032.
Yes.
But that is for erosion control measures.
Right. I think we put that in at the suggestion of the planning department of Mr. Crossman, I believe.
Well,
But, I mean,
you know, I
there's-
am asking for a review of this document just so that we can tighten up the process and perhaps maybe consolidate some of these sections that refer to process so it would be easier for someone to follow. But well, my next issue
Can I-
has to do with noise. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. My suggestion would be to pass this tonight, and I promise we will make provision for the noise issues if I see that that they're not covered elsewhere in our ordinances. But honestly, the noise ordinance controls noise, and it's already in effect, and it applies everywhere in town. This was to end something that I saw as being very wrong with our land use ordinances, because they basically took the entire zoning process. It removed all sand, gravel, and extraction from the zoning process. It wasn't within the purview of the zoning board, and it should have been. It was in the purview of the town council, which didn't have the authority to do it. So this is really just to fix that first major problem, or fix that major problem first. If there are things that you want to do to make it better, we can do that. But I wouldn't keep going on with this major defect in our land use regulation scheme. I would pass this, and then if there are ways to improve it, we can absolutely do it.
Well, could I say that this is public hearing, so if there are any any changes, we could make subtle changes.
We can.
As tonight,
It's-
tomorrow, if we pass anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I do understand the noise ordinance is covered already, so that's.
Where, could you
I'm-
cite it, please?
The
What it
noise
says?
ordinance, yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
I have to just, by the way, the president is absolutely right. In fact, in the notice that you're required to publish by the general laws, in the Zoning Enabling Act, it specifically provides that the notice has to say that the ordinance can be amended during this hearing and changed. That way the public knows that the brief summary that's offered and the entire ordinance in detail can be changed during this very hearing and voted on by the council tonight. So I'll try to look up the noise ordinance.
And then while you're doing that, the other
Here,
issue that I
Chapter
have.
169 is noise,
169 is
Yeah.
noise, yes.
and there are exceptions.
Yes, that's the problem.
Let me look at the exceptions, and I always thought that it. The provisions of this chapter shall not apply to, and I'm going to paraphrase, emergency situations, emergency work, non-commercial public speaking. That's First Amendment. An unamplified human voice. Anybody who can violate the noise ordinance without an amplifier, sign them up. Agricultural activities. The emission of sound in the performance of military operations. Well, of course, we can't regulate the military. The emission of sound in the discharge of weapons or in fireworks displays licensed by the town. The emission of sound in the operation of snow removal. The emission of sound relative to permitted construction and demolition activities, that such activity does not occur between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And the emission of sound in a residential area made in the course of the maintenance of a dwelling and/or property from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's it. Those are the exemptions. So the application of the noise ordinance is very broad, and I think it covers this. It always has, even when we had what I consider to be the mistakenly written Article 10, which gave the town council licensing authority. All that time, the noise ordinance applied to the same activity that we're talking about here in Article 10.
So question, if we were to tighten our noise ordinance and some new operation started, a gravel operation,
Yeah.
would the updated noise ordinance apply to something that was already started under the old ordinance? Because most of these new updates are not retroactive.
You're talking about, so if we were to try to apply the noise ordinance to an existing use of land,
That's not what she's saying.
I know, well, that's why I'm
Excuse me.
asking.
What she's saying is if we have a noise ordinance right now that quotes a certain decibel level, if
Right.
this council sees fit to change that noise ordinance and cut that decimal level in half,
Yes.
does that new ordinance apply to existing businesses, construction gravel bank operations within town?
Yes,
I-
he did phrase it correctly, but I think I was
I'm not going
capable
to
of
answer
doing
that
it
on the
myself
spot.
too.
That I am not going to shoot from the hip on, because
Oh, you're
I'll
not?
either
Okay.
engender a bunch of enemies or a bunch of litigation or both, and I don't want to do that. I have a gut on that, but I'm not gonna offer it in this.
Yeah, I mean, we want to protect our residents. I mean, they're complaining about noise in various parts of town for different reasons. And we know that if we update some of our ordinances, they do not apply to existing structures or operations. And so
Right.
here we are approving an update to this earth removal, sand and gravel extraction. And I just want to make sure that because you said, trust me, I promise. I heard you say that, I
Did I
promise.
say- okay.
Yeah, you said,
Okay.
I promise.
What's the law?
I know.
Oh,
you
well, I
said,
know, I did-
promise in quotes, if you pass this tonight, everything will be A-okay. You didn't exactly say
Well,
A-okay.
that now you're paraphrasing a little bit, but I think I did say that if amendments were needed to improve the ordinance,
Yes.
then I mean it's really up to you. But if you asked, it's up to the council, all five. But if you were to ask me to prepare amendments, of course I would do it. I would
Of
do that
course, of
anyway.
course.
So.
And the last issue that I'm concerned about is the buffer area, which is in 1041, to me seems too small.
That's the same as it was.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if we're in the process of changing this,
understood. Well, if you want to, I mean, you can propose an amendment to that. You could do it here tonight, or you could propose it as an amendment once and if we pass this.
The important thing to remember is we haven't had any applications for this.
Right.
Years and years.
I understand.
We're doing this for caution for some future possibilities.
Right.
So, it's not gonna have a big effect. There's not really many spots in town, really, that they could even do mining operations.
there are one or two, that's
Yeah,
true. There are one or two.
We were researching an area, and that's why this came up and found
Yeah.
out about the fact that the way it was being approved.
Right.
That's why it's here to get changed.
Does anybody else in the council have any, yes, please.
1024, it says a filing fee for special use permit application shall be paid to the town with the submission of the application. The
Yes.
zoning board of review may require the payment of a reasonable fee for the review of the application.
Correct.
Reasonable fee, what's a reasonable fee? Exactly, I mean, does it depend, yeah, Gary, you said it, not me.
That was there. I believe the town has the ability to charge a fee because you may have to hire consultants or something along those lines to review the application. I mean, generally speaking, these applications are very, very complex. They involve a lot of engineering, a lot of expertise to judge the merit of the application, the public safety issues that might be involved, and I just think the language is appropriate. And I know
But someone could challenge, I mean, if, say we go.
they can
and-
challenge anything.
I understand that, but I mean, reasonable fee, I mean, that is so subjective.
I think it had, my construction of that would be that it has to be related in some way to the cost to the town.
And I
That
understand
would be
that
my
goes-
initial explanation of that. It has to be related to what it costs the town to give a fair review of the application.
So if we added something in there that it would just be charged, whatever fees that the town needed to charge for whatever activities we had to hire, whether it be engineering, whatever, we could recoup our fees, we could add something to that effect.
I just think that needs to be, yeah,
Yeah.
apparently so.
It's all covered. We have the ability to charge what's needed on that now.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Let me explain what the town manager just reminded me of. We made an amendment not that long ago when
Caroline Wells brought that
Caroline Wells,
forward, yes.
at her suggestion, we made a change that allowed the town to make charges for the cost of having engineers look at some of the plans. I mean, typically they're for like subdivisions that have complicated sewer and drainage and water systems.
I don't remember the wording for that.
Well, I
Do
think
you?
it covered, I don't know if it was exclusive to subdivisions. I know that's what we all had in mind because it's the most common expense. But I could look at that, and if it needs to be, if that doesn't fit within the definition of reasonable, in other words, if the two can't be reconciled, then we'll make an amendment. But I'm pretty confident that this is fine the way it's written.
Well, I just want to make sure it's fair across the board. I mean, like Gary said, all of a sudden, a friend of, the zoning board of review, this person comes forward and this person's only charged, say, $500. Then no-name guy comes forward and he's charged $1,000 for almost the same application. So I just want to make sure it's fair.
Reasonable has a lot of legal
It has a
meaning.
lot, and
I'm
it
not
has a
gonna
lot
go
of
through all
leeway
of it.
here.
It mostly means fair. Fair. Well, that's how I interpret
Can we
it.
put fair in there?
You want to put fair and reasonable? That's absolutely fine with me.
I mean, I'm just, my other question is, if someone violates the condition of the special use permit, I didn't see anything in here about violation penalties, revoking the special use permit. Did I miss that in here?
That's in the, okay, if you go to, I'm sorry, I can't remember this section, but I know I wrote this. Many of these conditions are simply in addition to the inherent, in addition to the powers already delineated elsewhere in the zoning ordinance that the zoning board has over special use permits. They have all kinds of powers to require conditions of all different kinds that would be related to the public health and safety. Right. Those, so this is, and it says in here explicitly that these regulations are in addition to those that are in the section that is about special use permits in general.
Could we amend and just put, a title where it would say penalties,
But-
and if we were gonna revoke or violations, and to refer to
It
that
just,
chapter?
it's, hold on, I'm gonna find, okay, it says, I'll find it.
It doesn't say anything as it's written, but it's already written.
But you would have to go.
Okay,
and-
here we go.
You'd
Go
have
to,
to go and
go to
look for it.
1028.
Pardon?
And then 28.
In addition to the requirements set forth in this article for controlling those activities involving the removal or mining of each sand and gravel for commercial purposes, the zoning board of review shall make a determination that the applicant is in compliance with the requirements of a special use permit as set forth in Article 4, Section 430, which I think is the more general section about special use permits. But I think it's repeated again elsewhere that this is in addition to the powers of the zoning board to regulate to impose conditions for special use permits. I just can't find it.
That's why I was just asking if we could have just a simple header. It'll make it much easier if we can't find it.
Well,
That's all.
I mean, to make it, I know it's redundant, but to make it easy to understand, so we want to just add all.
oh, here it is.
Which one?
Wait a minute. No, that's not it.
All right, it seems like there's still some unanswered questions here. So, I'm gonna, is there any other questions from the council? I think in some of the questions that were asked, Nick, maybe we could just tighten this ordinance up a little bit, and maybe any council members that have any concerns could email Nick and just reiterate the questions and the concerns you have. Maybe you could tighten it up for the next meeting. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal when we come out the next meeting and do this.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to do that.
So we have, our questions are answered, and, we make sure it's,
Yeah, we're
we
gonna
all
continue it.
understand. So,
So
I just
what-
have a question. Will the public hearing complete tonight or as of another one?
I'm assuming.
I know that we don't have to vote tonight. We simply have to have the public hearing tonight. And I
Okay.
don't think we've had anyone from the public speak.
Well, we haven't asked.
And we haven't asked. So why don't we do that? And maybe we'll get even more ideas
Okay.
for when we take a vote.
Okay, is anybody from the public would like to speak on this matter? Yes. Yeah, why don't you let her go a little bit?
Hi.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Oh, Irene Drew, 23 Catalpa Way. So I just have a couple of observations. I appreciate that Councilwoman Dickson brought up the noise. It should be reiterated that the police department in our town has actually said that they don't have a way to measure industrial noise. I know that there's like a decibel level. They can measure noise like if it's like a band at a, an establishment, but for industrial noise, there are certain sections of town that we've been struggling with that for a long time. And so I think that that needs to be part of this ordinance, or that needs to be done in conjunction. I'm not sure, really why we need this right this second. I know there might be some things that have come up that, obviously the public wouldn't know. But I think that having sat on the zoning board, there's a whole lot of fixing of these ordinances that need to be done. Our ordinances are outdated. Things are all over the place. They're not well defined. Fair and reasonable for a fee to me might mean something totally different than fair and reasonable to someone else. And I think, you probably can't put a dollar figure on it when it comes to fair and reasonable fees, but there could be a little tightening up where you define what would be considered when charging a fee, whether it's the engineering or, because that could actually be justified, and then you're not opening yourself up to lawsuits of, well, this developer only got charged $1,000 and this developer got charged $2,000, and there's no way to really discern why one gets charged more than the other. So that was just an observation. I think, and I think Mr. McGee answered this sort of by saying, he thinks maybe we should tighten it up before, because I think it's negligent to go forward and pass an ordinance that clearly needs some fixing. Because you're passing it now, and then, 2 or 3 of you are going to come up with things. You're going to get members of the public that say, well, I don't, I think this needs to be defined, this needs to be defined. You're just doing it all over again. So I think it's a waste of time, and I think we have to be really careful going forward with ordinances to just make sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted before we start taking votes on them. And I think that's all I have on this one.
That's exactly why I want the public hearing to get comments like this, so I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Luke Murray, 121 Hill Farm Camp Road. So in lack of some planning staff here, I thought it was my duty to kind of stand up, because many of you know I serve as a principal planner for the city of Warwick and have a planning background. So in lack of representation, I just wanted to answer a few of the questions that were raised. I do agree with Mr. Gorham that this is something that needs to be fixed. This body can actually license anything. I went through this recently. We went through an effort where we were trying to license short-term rentals in the city of Warwick, and it came to our attention that we needed to have enabling legislation. That came from Andy Tights, who, as Mr. Gorham may know, is a well-respected zoning attorney, probably the preeminent zoning attorney in the state of Rhode Island. So this is something that does need to be fixed on the town level, I would say, as a planner. I would say that the special use approach is probably the proper method to do that, because with special use, it does put it in a public hearing environment, which is what you want, especially with a gravel operation. There's requirements both to get the recommendation from the planning board, which is typically an open hearing, and then it goes to zoning for the special use, which allows the community to weigh in. In addition, under special use, there's required findings per state law for a special use permit. So it's not like you can just check a box. What you're supposed to do is actually go through each one of those findings. What the zoning board should be doing is going through each one of those findings and justifying those findings under law. In addition, they can apply stipulations. So some people have mentioned noise. let's say a stipulation for potential operation closer to residential, you want to adjust the decibel level, you can do that through a zoning board process. So a stipulation could be that a decibel rating has to be measured so many feet from a property line for, you know, this particular gravel operation, where let's say something out in way western Coventry that's not near anything could fall under the existing ordinance. So you may want to be careful just on how you apply it. In addition, you have to be careful that you don't come up with something arbitrary and capricious, because I will tell you, I've also had issues with policing. Our noise ordinance is unenforceable. So I had a recent incident, there was street sweeping going on in the early morning hours. I had been trying to help a party out under a previous special use, and the police basically told me it's unenforceable. They had already taken it to court and it got thrown out. So I would just tread carefully by making these adjustments to the larger ordinance. The special use process would allow for that, and that's the whole point. You can impose some performance standards in the ordinance, and again, I would urge also that this gets taken back and readjusted, because I never think making snap decisions on this, especially without consulting your building official or your planning staff, because obviously they're the experts in the field and you want to make sure that they're weighing in on this. But I would say that you definitely want to consult them about how to maybe bring in some performance requirements, and by that I mean there's certain things that you can build into the zoning ordinance that they have so many feet from residential or other operations and things like that. Right now I'm working on a solar ordinance. We have a lot of performance-based standards on that, and that also has a noise ordinance, because with solar does come noise from inverters. We typically deal with that through stipulations. So, and I'm trying to just go through my list here to tie up, and fees. So fees, a lot of times, I always recommend you tie that to a fee schedule, and that fee schedule may be based on land area, because obviously a very small gravel operation is very different than a very large operation, and typically there's a more amount of effort with regards to soil and erosion control review and stormwater review for those developments. So if you're going to do it, again, you can be labeled arbitrary and capricious on fees, and you'll get a lot of pushback, especially on a large facility that may say, we've had this where we have, let's say, a 300-acre parcel, and we charge based on the 300 acres, but they're only developing a few acres of it, and we've gotten a lot of pushback on that. So we've kind of tailored it to say, your developable area is what we review, that is what we charge the fee on. That is not arbitrary and capricious. That's an actual calculation that we can come up with, and the fees are set yearly. So that what I would consider fair. But if I agree, what's fair for one is not fair for another, and you will get pushback on that, and it could end up in court. And the other thing is, just be aware, someone asked about revocation and enforcement. Typically, that runs through the building official. Typically, I don't know your particular ordinance inside and out, but I wouldn't go adding things into something special for a gravel operation. I would tie it to your existing enforcement schedule. So if it's a $500 a day fine for a specific activity, that would tie to that major section. So hopefully that is something you'll do. But I would agree with my fellow citizen here that you should probably table it tonight, go consult with the planning staff, make sure this thing's buttoned up. Because as I've heard, like our ordinance in Warwick, it's a hodgepodge, and I know a lot of communities are going through it because these ordinances are old. They get added into, and a lot of times it's based on snap decisions, and so things get jumbled up. I will tell you, having been on the private development side, it also gets very confusing for a developer to go through a zoning ordinance and read through everything, especially when things are in different sections and kind of garbled up. So hopefully you'll take that.
Thank you for your input. Appreciate that.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
No, absolutely. Go ahead. This is
Mr. Solicitor, if, like right now, we haven't had something come up on a gravel operation in a number of years, because of the deficiency that you found, if we do not have something passed tonight, we table this, what happens in the event that someone comes forward with an application to do graveling right now? What would be the effect?
Well, we currently have an ordinance that would not be enforceable because it delegates authority to the town council.
So they would have to wait until after the next meeting before we'd be able to approve anything.
Excuse me?
They would have to wait.
No, they wouldn't have to wait. As long as they file their application, they have what are called vested rights. And their vested right would be that they filed their application before we had an ordinance, which means they can, you know, if we're lucky, we can use our general police power to try to protect the town, but we will not have an ordinance that can be enforced. And by the way, I do have an answer. It is in here that the general requirements for special use permits do apply. These are in addition to the general requirements for special use permits. It's stated explicitly in section 1028. All right. In addition to the requirements set forth in this article 10, and then I'm going to skip ahead. The zoning board of review shall make a determination that the applicant is in compliance with the requirements of a special use permit as set forth in Article 4, Section 430, which is the section of our zoning ordinance that generally requires, that sets forth the standards generally for the issuance of special use permits by the zoning board. I think the better approach, this is just my opinion, but the better approach is to pass this tonight. And if you want to make improvements, you can always make them. But if you do nothing tonight, you open yourself up to some potentially grave circumstances for the town.
Question. Is it possible for us to avert that scenario by just placing a moratorium on approval of
No.
any more
No.
gravel operations?
No,
Why
that's
not?
not. You have an ordinance in front of you tonight that
Yeah.
There's been no objection to it. I mean, there have been some comments about how it can be improved. But you have an ordinance, you don't have an ordinance right now. So, and you can't do a moratorium because
Because
the
what?
circumstances are very limited for that, and I don't think they would apply here. We've had plenty of time to do this. We've just never done it. So, my suggestion is to pass it, and if you want to improve it, we can improve it.
All right, we have some other members from the public would like to say something, please.
Dennis Robideau, 21 York Drive, Coventry, Rhode Island. Is there a way to pass this tonight and then go back and redraw it?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
I honestly think it's a very good ordinance the way it's written. Is it perfect? No. There are always people who think they can do better, and that's what makes things better. We'll make it better, but it's pretty, I think it's very complete and very good. By the way, we went through this entire ordinance with the planning department, with Mr. Crossman. He made a number of suggestions, particularly having to do with the engineer and the role of the engineer in the process. So this has been vetted by the appropriate departments, and
So you see no harm with passing this and
None.
then changing anything that's really, because there's potential if somebody comes up in the real near future to, which
Yeah.
is very possible.
right.
All right.
Because we're attracting so much attention to it tonight.
Yeah. You have a comment, you can go up to the mic, please. Yeah, I saw you, you're not? Please go up to the mic and just, so we can all hear it, please.
Say my name again?
Yes. Yes.
Irene Drew, 23 Catawba Way. So
Could you talk into the mic so everyone can hear
Mrs.
you?
Dickson was asking about a moratorium, and you shut that down immediately. I guess maybe what my concern is why the rush? And wouldn't you rather get it right than jump to something that is insufficient? Because, so you have somebody come in and they apply for the permit. I mean, I would think with the town, there's also this timeline that I'm a little confused about, 30 days to this and 30 days to that. It looks like it takes about between 120 and 120 days to get it done anyway. Can you not advise people who make an application for this that by the time, I mean, it's not gonna take you guys 120 days to make a decision. It seems like you've pretty much narrowed down what's, you know, what needs to be addressed. So there's this timeline for, like, you know, it goes from zoning to planning and 30 days here and 30 days. No, is that the other ordinance?
If, the reason I talked, as I did with Ms. Dickson about the prospect of a moratorium is the criteria to do that is very specific and they're not always enforced. I never said that this was not a good ordinance.
No,
And I didn't even
I'm not
say-
saying it's not a good ordinance
Right,
either,
and
but I'm
so
saying it seems,
we didn't get it wrong, in my opinion, and it's not even one of those just okay ordinances. This is a good ordinance.
well, it
A
seems
lot of time-
insufficient in some of the things that the councilwoman has brought up with regard to the noise.
Right.
I mean, we have no way to measure noise, so how are you gonna enforce that? You're gonna have the police running out if there's a noise issue, you're gonna have the police responding, and they can't do anything about it. It's a waste of town resources, it's a waste of people's time. And while I appreciate that the ordinances are getting written, and I'm not by any means making any judgment, but you've had people, including people on the council, bring up things that need to be addressed. Why, I mean, it doesn't have to be a delay. You guys meet like every 2 weeks, right? So it doesn't have to be a delay of 3 months. It can just be a simple short delay. Get your ducks in a row, get at least the appropriate things in place before you enact an ordinance that's insufficient.
I've said what I believe. I believe the prudent thing to do is to pass it, and you can always improve ordinances. This ordinance is well written, just the way it is.
Okay, yeah, I just respectfully disagree with that.
No, I was gonna say if nobody else from the public, I didn't realize the lady had raised her hand. I was gonna say if nobody else from the public was going to get up and speak, I was going to make a motion to close public hearing.
All right, well, let's see, if anybody else from the public would like to make a comment? Yes.
Luke Murray, 121 Hill Farm Camp Road. I just wanted to clarify, because I wasn't saying it wasn't a good ordinance, okay? I do think that it needs some tweaking. I understand what Mr. Gorham is saying. There is some vested rights, although I will say that there's a time of completion period to get the certificate of completion, which is typically 25 days. That does get extended, but you do run yourself a little bit of a risk on vested rights. If somebody gets their application in, if it gets approved in this interim, it could have an implication. So that said, the council, and I just want to clarify, I was trying to provide information earlier. It wasn't for or against, really. It's particularly with regards to noise and adding things into this. I don't think you want to, what I'm not encouraging you to do is amend things on the floor. If you want to accept the ordinance in front of you and then amend it later, I would go back in a very timely fashion to your planning staff and say, hey, I have issue with this, or I don't understand that, and then get those amendments through. But, I don't disagree with the ordinance. I just want to be, clear on that. And it, there is a definite concern that you could have a vested rights issue. I understand also when you bring things to light, and let's say there's somebody waiting in the wings who may not have come out of the woodwork. This is happening with solar and wind and everything else. Once you bring it up, you could feasibly encourage somebody to kind of jam their foot in the door. We had that happen recently on solar. So it's a potential, but I would encourage you, what I was encouraging is definitely work with the planning staff and bring it back if necessary.
I understand it needs to be tweaked, but I think to cover ourselves, if we pass it this evening and then amend the noise ordinance that you have concerns with for the next meeting, I'm fine with that, just so we can cover ourselves between now and if anything else happens, anybody comes, now that this is all, come to light, I don't want to see somebody try to run in and beat the ordinance,
And then also section 1024, the application fee.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely amend it next meeting. There's no need for us to wait, but at least we can cover ourselves. That's what legal counsel suggests, and I'm fine with that, but we certainly want to cover ourselves.
There's nobody that can stand before us and guarantee that someone isn't going to walk into town hall tomorrow.
Right.
And
that's
put an
the problem.
application in, and now that vests them in us, in essence, having
If we
no
don't do-
ordinance.
If we don't do something, we leave here tonight,
Correct.
leaving the town wide
All
open.
for, getting the language proper
Right.
and the process, Ann had that absolutely correct, to know that there's no confusion as to what's going to be asked of the engineer, of the planning commission, of the planning director, et cetera, and laying it out in probably a more of a lineal fashion than what it is, as opposed to, in numerous areas without having any particular natural flow to it as to show what the process
And that's
should be.
kind of my thoughts. I really feel like we could tweak it a bit, but, we certainly, can make them amendments for the next meeting, so we're covered. So if there's no other questions, from anybody, is there any other questions from anybody from the audience?
Make a motion, we close public hearing?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing is closed. The
Mr.
chair-
President, I'd like to make a motion that we pass this ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion to pass
Okay,
this ordinance.
actually,
I'm
we make a
sorry.
motion with two changes as handed to me by the solicitor in section 1028, which will cross off mining of, what is the? What is
each.
Oh, of each. Okay, to cross off the word each in 1028, section 1028. And to add in section 1024, the words fair and in front of reasonable. To make that may require the payment of a fair and reasonable fee for the review of the application. To add those two changes for right now.
Yeah, for now, that would cover us for now, and then we can absolutely amend that, get on a fee schedule, Sure. Are you comfortable?
I got him here.
No, I'm not comfortable unless I know that on the next agenda, we will bring this forth again with the potential to have amendments.
You bring them forward to the town manager and certainly put it on the next agenda.
That's,
All right, we'll work with the solicitor.
but
Mrs. Dickson, we would present it, but it's gonna require, again, amending an ordinance is gonna require a public hearing, so we have to start the whole process, but we can, if you bring it forward, we'll present it to Joanne 5 days in advance, and then start the process all over.
That's right.
It won't be correct, it won't be changed next meeting, but it will follow through the process.
On the
to get-
process.
To get the amendments made into it. So
I
it
think,
cannot be done in one
That's
meeting,
right.
but it will be, but
That's right.
yes, if you get it to us, we'll get it done.
I just don't want to see this delayed, because some things do get delayed sometimes for meetings and months and so on and so forth, and things don't happen. I mean, I want to protect the town, but on the other hand,
That's
I feel that
the
there are
priority.
flaws in this document that really need to be corrected before we all forget about it, pass on to the next issue, and then we never get back to this again.
We can,
If you send those concerns to Nick and I, we'll start the process on it.
I'll send them tomorrow.
and I'll make sure it's on the agenda
Okay.
for the next meeting. All right,
Okay.
fine.
Thank you, Ed.
So we have a motion, I believe. Do we have a second?
No, with those changes, yes.
Correct.
Second with those changes.
Okay, we have a motion with those changes and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, would be item F3, please.
Public hearing regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 204 Solid Waste Ordinance.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it, public hearing is open. Mr. Manager, or Mr. Solicitor, you want to give a rundown on this?
Actually, Mr. McGee, DPW Director, is going to be on the hot seat for this.
I know this has come in front of us on several occasions, and it's been sent back to be revised and revised. So would you be so kind as to give us a rundown and then be prepared to answer any questions that council members may have and any members from the public? Good evening.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. The proposal in front of you folks for the solid waste ordinance, all the revisions you see here, the red are the omissions and the blue are for the additions. The definitions have been revised for today's operating standards. Keep in mind that 98% of our residents comply with the rules and regulations, but the 2% who refuse to comply with the recycling, yard waste, and trash guidelines result in tax dollars being utilized to pay for their noncompliance. The noncompliance has resulted in rejected loads at Rhode Island Resource Recovery and is getting worse. In 2016, we had 1 rejected load. In 2017, we had 1 rejected load. 2018, we had 3 rejected loads. 2019, 15 rejected loads. and we already have one rejected load in January of this year. That has resulted in, between handling fee fines and what we have to dispose of at the trash rates, a cost of $8,884 to the taxpayers because of noncompliance with the recycling regulations. The recycling disposal noncompliance has cost the town thousands of dollars in fines and disposal costs, with each taxpayer who follows the guidelines should be outraged. This waste of tax dollars by the noncompliance of the 2%, the rejected recyclables, so far 77.27 tons, also reduces our recycle rate and reduces our disposal credit. These violations include trash in the recycling containers, yard waste in the recycling containers, and non-recyclables in the recycling containers, with a strong ordinance that includes enforcement, which discourages noncompliance and fines the flagrant 2% who refuse to comply with the guidelines or to comply at all. This amendment clearly outlines the needed revisions to recognize our automated collection system, which was started just a little over 4 years ago on October 26th of 2015, after the voters approved a bond referendum for the new sanitation system. The town recycling rate prior to the automated collection system struggled to achieve 30 to 32%. Just this calendar year, January through December, our curbside recycling rate has ranged from 42 to 46%, for an average curbside recycling rate for calendar 2019 of 44%. One of the goals of the ACS was for reduction in workman's comp claims. To date, 2 claims have been made in the 4.5 years from the automated, and those 2 claims were for yard waste collection only. Actual trash and recycling collection had 0 workman's comp claims in those 4+ years. The fines in this ordinance are the final attempt at compliance. The process starts with a sticker being attached to the container noticing the violation. 2 letters are sent to the resident, and a 3rd letter is sent certified mail outlining the violation. Only after this process has been exhausted will the violation be filed with the municipal court for a fine to be imposed and the possibility of loss of service. Public Works, municipal court, and the police department, along as our solicitor, has reviewed this proposed changes and made the changes that you see before you. Public Works, municipal court, and the police department will be responsible for the administration, investigative, and enforcement of this chapter. The management plan formerly outlined in 20415 has been replaced by the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Diversion Plan, issued annually to include state requirements regarding solid waste management. The Solid Waste Advisory Board has been omitted, as the town council has never appointed a board since the chapter's inception, and any resident's avenue for appeal, as outlined, is through the town manager. All of the changes in this ordinance are simply cosmetic and housekeeping to make this a workable document. To not approve these revisions with the ability for the enforcement actions for non-compliance is like passing traffic laws for the police without no enforcement ability. Included to show here also, so far in January, Public Works has sent out 53 letters on non-compliance, and a lot of them going back over prior months are to some of the same addresses. Without some type of enforcement, they are continuing to shrug their nose at us and say, send us a letter, we're still not going to comply, and we have no way of doing that. Here is the breakdown by month of our recycling coordinator has provided to us, and where we've done our 44% curbside recycling rate. We could be better if we weren't getting these rejected loads. Here are the load slips with the pictures of the rejected loads from resource recovery that we've been dealing with for the last 4+ years. We brought this information forward. It's been on our social media page, on the town website, and we have countless responses from the people on social media indicating, start issuing citations, maybe then people will pay attention. And that's just one person out of pages of what people want in the community. Pretty much, that's my presentation to you folks. If you decide not to do this, that's your right. But all we're doing is we're costing 98% of our taxpayers additional funding that we can't get reduced by not changing this ordinance and updating it.
I mean, myself, I'm actually appalled that people, this is not a hard thing to do the recycling. I mean, everybody should get used to it. I mean, like you said, 98% of the people are following the rules.
Correct.
Why are we gonna cater to the 2% that just don't care? This is a community, we all have to work together. Our goal was to make it a recycler so we can make money on it and pay our loans on our vehicles that we bonded out. I just don't understand why people would be just so ignorant to the rules and we have no recourse. And like you said, if you don't have anything to back up, any teeth to this, the people don't care. Obviously, the 2% people just don't care. And it's just not fair to the rest of us. So I'm in full support of it. I've read through it all. I thought for a while we have to have some kind of enforcement on it. I'm sure there's a lot of comments. I mean, I've seen social media. And I don't go on it too much, but I have seen some of the comments on it. And I'm going to open it up to anybody from the council who has any comments on it before we open to the public. Yes, Mr. Cody.
I could tell you that when Mr. McGee, I don't want to say first started thinking about these changes, but when he first proposed bringing them before the council, he brought them to me, and I started working with him on it. And then when it came out at a public hearing, it had to be sponsored by somebody else because I was out of town at the time, so another council member stepped up and put their signature on it for me. I agree, Kevin. It's like all the speed limit signs up and down 117. If you tell our police officers, no more writing speeding tickets, forget it. Well, why do we have speed limit signs up? Why do we have stop signs? Why do we have stop lights? You have to put some teeth in it. Now, I go on social media a lot, and I see the comments on, oh, now we're going to put people in jail over their garbage. Now no, we're not. No, we're not. But if we don't do something, the very fact that these taxpayers in the town of Coventry approved a bond to buy these new trucks, to start this new program, so the recyclables will pay for the new equipment. But we've cut down on workman's comp claims. We've cut down on accidents. We've cut down on all of these things. We've increased our recycling. But because 2% of the people are not complying and laughing in your face about not complying, we're having to dump recyclables on the hill at the Rhode Island Central landfill with the trash instead of getting community share payback for those recyclings that could go into the recycle building.
Plus pay $250 per load as a fine.
Correct. Plus having to pay the trash rate to get rid of them. I mean, people are cleaning their wood stoves and putting the ashes in the recycle bin and then putting recyclables on top of it, thinking you won't notice it when you dump it in the truck because we got recyclables on top of it. Contaminates the whole load. Now you got to pay an additional $500 to go dump it on the hill as trash. It's ridiculous. We need to give our departments some way to put some teeth into the ordinances that we are passing. If you're not going to put teeth in it, might as well not pass them. Might as well not, you know what? Might as well not pick up garbage anymore. I don't know. It's not fair that 98% of the taxpayers pay for 2% of the people that just don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't care.
Mr. Cody, also, there's been some comment about the fines in the 30 days. That is already in our ordinance. It's been in the ordinance. And on section 204-7, it clearly states that the fines would be $300 or be in prison for a period of not to exceed 30 days. All we did was take existing verbiage that was in the existing ordinance and carry that through the entire ordinance so that we had those. Unfortunately, that spot that it's in here on 204 happens to deal with scavenging. But the verbiage for the fine amount and the imprisonment is already in the existing ordinance. So,
Correct.
Except we just carried it through.
Correct. All we're going to do is start enforcing it.
And this was done with the recommendation of the municipal court judge on how it could be enforced.
Okay, Ms. Dickson, you have a couple of comments?
First of all, thank you for the thorough ordinance. There's a lot covered in here, and I appreciate the thoroughness of it. I do have a couple of comments. I did receive emails and a call regarding the time in jail up to 30 days and the fine of up to 300. And at first blush, I thought this seemed very harsh, because I follow the rules. But then I went
Doesn't
to
apply to you.
but I went to our town charter, and our town charter does say that the municipal court can enact fines up to $300 and 30 days in jail. So this ordinance basically just mimics or mirrors what is already in our town charter. So if people don't like that kind of consequence, we need to do something about the town charter, because I believe the town charter trumps any kind of ordinance. Is that correct, Mr.
And like I
Barr?
said, Mrs. Dixon,
Yes.
it's already in the existing ordinance.
But it is also in our charter.
Correct. That's why I'm sure
So
it's
you
there.
could do too, just follow the rules. And then we won't-
Oh, that's true. The other,
Maybe some of the people who don't want to go to jail might come onto the Charter Review Commission.
well, they could
Mrs.
change it,
Dixon?
yes. I do have a couple other comments. There's another point that people have made, and that is the requirement to put trash in a rodent repellent bag.
See, unfortunately, man,
I mean,
it's,
it does say that, and I did go on Home
Yeah,
Depot's
but
site last night, and you can buy rodent repellent bags. They are more expensive than regular bags, but I wonder about why we would need rodent repellent bags insofar as our trash goes in a bag, which goes in a container which is closed, which is then picked up by an automated truck that dumps it right away. So I would suggest that putting in this requirement of a rodent repellent bag might be removed. It's in section 204-25B2.
correct. And if I could, ma'am,
Yeah.
and so it's unfortunate that we take a couple of words out of context.
Yeah.
If you read the entire sentence,
Yes.
okay,
I
it
will
says,
go to it,
all
yes.
solid waste will be bagged and placed in the town-issued container. All bags must be tied, be of sufficient strength and texture to prevent leakage and spoilage, and be rodent-proof. The container will be closed at all times. The rodent-proof is because of the leaking. All you do, if you have a leaking bag of garbage, we ask that you double bag the garbage so it does not attract rodents for your neighbors or for your own residents. We're not saying you need to have rat-proof bags. We're saying if you're gonna have an issue that's gonna be drawing rodents, please double bag it if it's leaking.
So this means that I'm not going to be fined if I don't use
course
a
not.
rodent repellent bag?
Of course not.
because
That's not what
how
the,
I-
that's not what
how
the,
I read it here.
no, that's not what the intent.
I mean, really,
That's-
I'm just I'm doing my homework
Yeah.
over the weekends.
Yep, no, it's designed to only, to be able to not be a nuisance to attract rodents by having any trash that may be leaking. And we ask that it be double bagged so that it doesn't do that. So for your own benefit, you don't have rodents coming or your neighbors don't have rodents coming.
So I don't need a special bag.
You do not need a special bag,
Okay.
no ma'am.
The other minor thing is that there is a reference in section 204-31E, was it C, that you are going to be posting notices on the town website and social media pages. I would strike social media pages. I mean, everyone does not want to go to social media pages to find out information about what's happening at the town. I think it's sufficient that we push people toward the town website for official information.
But yeah, we have a Facebook page for the
For
DPW that's very
Public Works,
well used.
we have a Facebook page that's for Public Works.
But it doesn't say that.
It's
So I-
Well, it's so social media. it
Well,
doesn't-
then put down it's the DPW
we-
Facebook page.
If that's what the council wants, that's
Yeah, I
fine, but
think
that's,
so.
we're trying to do that. We don't go all over to social media. We just post on our website, whether we
On
have.
your own,
Miss-
on your own.
Mrs. Dixon, what we typically do is when we put it out on one Facebook page for one department,
Yes.
we share it out and we do it out to all of them. It's not 100%, but typically, especially with something important, it goes out to everyone. It goes to the police, it goes to the town, it goes to Parks and Rec, DPW. So we push those out to everybody on anything that's critical. We're getting more and more hits. I hate to say it, but we're getting less and less activity on our website and getting more and more hits on the Facebook pages. That social media is gathering more and more people.
So this social media page refers to
Facebook.
our own authorized official social media sites. Is that correct?
That's
correct.
That's not outside. This
Okay,
is just ours.
And maybe we can just
We
put
can
a
clar-
little.
we can clarify that, ma'am.
Clarify that.
Sure. I've already made a note
I
for that.
think that's important.
Town website and associated social media.
I think that's better.
The schedule when there's a
Yeah.
holiday, because a
Right.
lot of people get confused and put the trash out a day early.
Or if we have a
It's
snow day,
holiday.
or if we have a
It's
snow
nice
day,
to
we
be
have
able
to
see
delay.
it on social media that, and then you posted, like this week you posted, we're back on schedule, the regular collection schedule.
Right.
All right, can we
So-
let Mrs. Dickson finish her comments?
Just one more. DPW has a lot of responsibility in sending out all these notices, et cetera.
I hope not to be sending out a lot of notices, ma'am. I hope to
Oh.
maybe one or two, but yes.
The good people are not going to be forcing you to send out
Correct.
notices, that's true. But I'm wondering about the wisdom of when do we call in the police to help enforce these rules and regulations on this ordinance?
Absolutely. We first went to the police department and to the municipal court judge, and their indication was they don't want to be bothered with issuing tickets for somebody's recycling. If there is a problem at the time of delivering a final notice or going forward to issue that citation, they will be happy to join the public works director or his designee. And believe me, it'll be more that'll be his designee than to be myself. I've got more than enough things to do than worry about doing individual notifications on violations of our solid waste ordinance. But the police will be involved in all steps that we need them to be involved at. But going forward, sending out letters and doing that, they do not need to be involved at that point. They've already told us they don't want to be involved at that point. And we had Captain Skorsky and the Colonel both agree. We went back. It's one of the reasons why we went back to this and rewrote it with the municipal court judge and with Mr. Gorham to go through this to make it fit for all the parties that were happy with how the ordinance was going to be executed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Anybody
Dixon.
else have any comments?
I do. I have the purpose under section 204-3,
204.
125 of 142.
So what's the question?
All right.
Okay,
Okay, no, Kevin was
Oh,
looking.
okay,
I
I
was
didn't
just
see that,
waiting.
yes.
It doesn't say anything about promoting recycling.
This was the existing. We did not change this. This was what the purpose of the general requirements. We go into much detail in the ordinance about solid waste.
Oh, I know. I just wonder, you know.
Yeah, no,
the
we didn't touch
purpose.
this because it was just,
Because isn't that one of the reasons why you're here before us, to
We-
promote recycling?
we're here to promote, we're update all the solid waste ordinance. It's not just for recycling. Recycling is a component of it, but it's
Okay,
not all of it.
But I
yeah.
was just wondering, can we add promote recycling?
Sure.
Fix that right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's mine.
And 204-5. It
Yes.
says interfering with town employees in performance of duties. It shall be unlawful for any person to interfere with any employee of the town while in the performance of his or her duties as authorized or required by this chapter. Can you define what interfere?
Most recently, we've had a gentleman that we went to collect recycling, and they had a contaminated cart. The driver was in the process of stickering that cart. The resident came out, and he explained what the problem, started swearing at the driver, started taking the stuff out and throwing it at the truck. That's interfering with our driver. And I don't want him to, any of our drivers to be, and it's not the first instance that's happened. So when you interfere, I had one car swerve in front of a truck as it was doing a route in Wood Estates. Stopped in front, well, you missed my cart. He hadn't even gone up the other side of the car yet, but I was happy to be behind him when that happened. I had to intercede because he was getting out and being belligerent with the driver. That's interfering with his work.
Can we, Nick, is this on?
Sure.
Can we just make sure, like, interfere? Suppose a resident, you're trying to put a sticker on, and the resident comes out, not belligerent, but just said, nope, you're not doing it, and takes the cart and rolls away. Would
Right.
that be
No.
interference?
We're talking about interfering where they're going to do possibly bodily.
Okay, so bodily harm, you're saying?
Bodily harm is one of the reasons why interfere, or letting them try to do the job, putting a car in
Can
front of
we-
them.
There's nothing wrong with that
Well, I
language.
mean, I'm just, I don't want all of a sudden a resident is said, nope, I'm not gonna recycle, nope, I'm taking my recycle bin, and
Okay,
brings it back.
you're looking
I-
at changing the ordinance based upon the 2% again.
I-
Most
I'm-
people,
I'm looking, this ordinance is for everybody, not this 2%, unless you're just discriminating against those two, which we're not doing.
why would you say that, ma'am?
Well, you
We're-
just
we're
keep
talking
saying the
about-
2%.
well,
but
2% of
this
people do not
ordinance is
comply.
for everyone.
98% of the people do comply, so
But
why
I
would,
just want.
I'm just curious, why would you say I'm discriminating against 98%?
Because you keep bringing up the 2%.
Because they're the ones that are
Listen,
non-compliant.
I'm trying to just say, could you please define interference? That's all. I just want to make sure.
I'll leave it to
Because
the-
it's very vague.
This came up to the solicitor, I'll let him answer.
I think the language is fine. And in the instance that Mr. McGee described, something like that, they probably could have been criminally charged. So
Oh, they
this
could have,
actually
but
gives
I
the
just
town a
wanna
way
make
to
sure-
charge them with something that's not quite as egregious, so I think it's fine.
What's your next question?
Title to waste, 204-6. Could you explain that? Please.
Basically, what it says, the title is that, just what it says, in the absence of an agreement to the contrary, title to the solid waste shall vest in the owner of each management activity or facility in which the solid waste is placed, meaning Rhode Island Resource Recovery. If that was the place that if we had someplace else that we were disposing of something, like we have Ace Mattress, takes care of the mattresses, we have transfer station, has many different places that we divert from the solid waste stream. They own, once they take it, they own the solid waste.
Okay. 204-7, scavenging. It's the last two sentences. No person engaged in the business of separation, recovery, collection, removal, storage, or disposition of solid waste shall pick up or procure any recyclable materials. This restriction shall also include any resident, taxpayer, or any other person who might engage in such practice for personal gain. It's probably a question for Nick. Now that we do that pink bag where we put these, it's a for-profit, does that?
No, because they have a system where if you put it in the pink bag and you put it out, then they come get their pink bag.
Okay.
So that's okay. There are a lot of people out where I live, they come in from Connecticut and go through the recycling and start taking stuff.
Aluminum cans there.
Right. So out where I am, out near the Connecticut border, it's an issue.
Yeah, although even around here, the light iron, we have pickup trucks that go around and scavenge.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure that wasn't going to be an issue
Not
with
at
the
all.
pink bags. 204-8, littering. I believe there's a Rhode Island general law for littering, and any of those fines are defined by the state and refer to traffic tribunal jurisdiction.
This is where the police would actually get involved because it is a town and state law. But again, the solicitor is the one who suggested the verbiage, and we kept most of it together. We just try to outline a little bit more about second and consecutive offenses.
Because the state with littering, the fines for the first offense are $85 to $1,000, and then it goes on. But it's a Rhode Island general law, and it's traffic tribunal that handles that. I believe it's 37-15-6.
Does that cover private property as well?
I believe, but I'm not an attorney, so that's why I'm asking. So,
Waiting on you. Yes, it is a question on the littering.
I apologize. The question is whether the state law regarding littering supersedes this?
yes.
No, I think the town can have its own provisions in its recycling and solid waste ordinance that prohibits people from throwing it on the ground on their property.
But if it's state law, does that, that's what I'm asking.
We-
Can you look at what,
It doesn't preempt a town from having an ordinance. An example might be, I live on a state highway, and because there aren't any houses near my house, it's like a dumping ground for people who have Dunkin' Donuts cups and stuff like that. And it just gets covered with litter. if they could be prosecuted by the Coventry Police for a state offense. If it's something that's more related to the solid waste container or something, it could be subject to this ordinance. There's nothing in conflict about the two. I think it's fine. Thank you.
All right, 204-12B4. Automated yard waste containers may be purchased from the Department of Public Works. What's the cost?
$80.
$80?
Yes. And that's listed on our website, on the Facebook page, and we have
So
a
it's not listed in the ordinance.
not listed in the order because it's price change. I just got a price increase for the next batch of yard waste containers, that price is going to change with the price of resin. So that's why we didn't put a price specifically.
Okay, so we may want to change that.
Recycle ones are free.
Recycle containers are free. It's trash and
The
yard
recycle
waste
free?
containers. I'm sorry?
Recycling?
We look to encourage people to recycling, and we'll give anyone additional recycling containers at no charge.
Okay, because
And
our
that's in the-
ordinance.
and that's in the
all right,
ordinance.
We actually have an ordinance, recycling container replacement fee, $5.
What are you looking at, ma'am?
That's when we
Our
had the
fees.
old blue and
Yeah.
Our fees.
little square containers.
But it's still recycling container replacement fee. It's still a recycling container.
I didn't say a replacement, I needed an extra recycle because we recycle a lot. So it wasn't to replace my original one, it was a second
All right,
one.
do we have any other questions? Let's move
Yep.
along.
Yep.
I'm sorry, did you say there was someplace in here that says $5?
Yes, and the fees are our list of fees for our ordinances?
You talking about this ordinance?
No, not this
Okay.
ordinance. No.
All right, I'll leave that to the
So
council to
the-
decide on.
So the $80, it's so,
For the yard waste
Going back-
containers and for additional solid waste trash containers.
but it's not listed anywhere. There's no fee.
There's no fee. It says in here in other locations that the fee is set by the Department of Public Works based
So you
upon
can
the
set
cost.
any fee.
I'm sorry?
You can set any fee.
Do you really think we would set any fee? We do this at cost. Okay, we don't, we.
I'm just,
I
because
understand, but we
it's
don't,
very
we don't
vague.
make a dime on any of the residents. This is provided to the residents at our cost, actually a little bit of a loss, because we have to assemble them, and we don't charge for that.
Okay, C, I just have a question. Nothing in this section.
Where are we? Which-
Oh, sorry. It's still under 204-12C.
See, okay.
Yep. Nothing in this section shall in any way prohibit any resident from composting leaf and yard waste on their residential property for use associated therewith that is not otherwise prohibited by the laws of this state. So someone had asked me this question, is there a size? I mean, because if someone has a massive pile back there in their backyard and they don't move that around, water it, it will get very smelly. So is there a size regulated with?
Whatever the laws of the state require as far as sizes, and that would be through DEM and through resource recovery, and that's indicated here in the last sentence.
Okay. We are now on 204-14. DPW is now an investigative agency.
Well, the sanitation department, wouldn't we be the ones investigating whether or not there's a problem with a resident or somebody non-compliant? And I'm sorry, but the 2%?
So I guess my question is, for the investigative agency, what will you be doing to investigate? Will you be going on the property? Will you just be at the street? How will
We
you?
we only look at the street, and that would be, we do waste assessments as it is now. Our recycling coordinator would go to where the carts are located on town right of way with these sidewalks. We do not go on private property.
Okay.
And part of the investigation would be going back and doing the historical data to find out how many times that we put stickers on the containers telling what the violations have been, how many letters are being sent out, how many certified letters, and at that point, that's why we have to get that investigation before we go to the municipal court judge and issue that in front of him. We have to have all that investigative information done.
Okay. 24, excuse me. 204-15, requirements for contracts entered in by town. All contracts entered into by town under this chapter shall meet the following minimum requirements. So I guess this is a question for Nick. With that, Nick, we have a purchasing agent that does all the contracts. So does that all go through the purchasing agent?
Yeah, I'm trying to find that specific clause that you just read, though. Can you tell
That
me?
is 20,
204-15.
204-15, sorry, getting
Yeah,
late.
but which?
Requirements for contracts entered into by
No, I
town.
get that, but
Well,
what's wrong with what is it that you're questioning?
My
Is
question
it A,
is,
there's A through F. Is it A through F or is it all of
No,
them?
my question is regarding the contract, yeah, all of them, because we had under the ordinance for the purchasing agent, it states the purchasing agent shall perform duties specified, blah, blah, blah. Hang on.
Just to help you, the purchasing agent for the town of Coventry is the town manager.
This,
Well, I don't know who the purchasing agent is.
I'm telling you, the town manager is the purchasing
It's
agent.
the town.
Oh, you
Yeah.
appointed?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're appointed yourself?
this,
No,
No,
it's
I didn't
that's
appoint
been that
myself.
way for
Charter.
decades.
Ordinance.
Who
So-
the town manager shall, or someone appointed by him in accord with applicable personal rules and regulations. The manager may appoint the director of finance as the purchasing agent.
But he is the purchasing agent,
Right.
the town manager is.
correct.
So you're the purchasing agent. So,
As Mr. Hoover was, as Mr. Waters was, everyone up until,
okay, so the purchasing
Mr. Frobe.
agent shall perform the duties specified in the article in connection with the purchase of contract for all supplies, materials, equipment, and contractual services as required by the department, office, or agency of the town, including the school department. So these contracts, so this is just, it would just be the purchasing agent. All we have to do is change this to the purchasing agent,
right.
correct?
And just to make it easy for you, in the event that the town goes back for some reason to having somebody haul the stuff from the transfer station up to resource recovery, that contract that we had with the prior company would be something the town manager would have to approve. That's all that says.
Okay. 204-16, the insurance requirement for contractors, it went from less than 100 and to $1 million?
Correct.
What?
$1 million.
Million,
We don't want the town to be liable for anything, so it's $1 million. And that was based on the finance director's recommendation.
okay.
We have any more questions? We're spending
Yes.
a lot of time shredding this ordinance. I think it's a great ordinance, but I mean, every single paragraph. Go ahead, continue. How many more questions do we have?
I got quite a few.
Okay? Bring it on.
I do have a question. Renters, are they included, if renters and apartment buildings, are they part of the recycling program?
Yes, it's actually, if you read in here, it's outlined in here that we consider residential, it's in the beginning of the ordinance, as single family, a dual family, or a apartment building, 3 family or less, owner occupied. Anything above that is considered commercial, and we do not collect from any commercial properties.
By town ordinance.
Yes. Is there another one?
Yeah,
Okay.
this, I'm sorry.
Where are we at?
I was just looking, I was just gonna say it.
Okay.
204-23.
Wow, okay.
We can go over the others if you want. I do have more.
No, I'm just,
Maintenance of containers in surrounding area. The resident who is assigned containers for solid waste must maintain them in the adjacent area in a nuisance and odor-free condition. It probably should be, if these containers are provided by the town.
no, we actually assign them to each resident has an assigned
Oh.
number with a RFID chip in the handle of each one. So they are assigned by that, it's not just provided.
But they're also provided by the town.
Well,
So
it's-
that's all. I just,
Yep.
can you define nuisance?
Can I define nuisance?
Yeah, in a nuisance and odor-free condition, nuisance. Maintenance of containers in surrounding areas, nuisance. What's a-
I mean, a nuisance would be somebody who is putting things out that are not recyclable or doesn't fit in the trash can and continues to put something out that creates a
Well,
nuisance
this
for
is
the,
the maintenance of the container, so it's.
keep it clean. That's
keep
all we
them-
ask. Just keep them clean. If you have something that leaks, clean it out so it's not having rodents coming or it's not going to be smelly to your residents, to your neighbors. A little common sense, that's all.
Oh, 204-25.
Okay?
What is the warranty on the containers?
Warranty for the containers, 18 years.
18 years?
Yes.
So, and what's the cost? If a container is damaged?
If it's damaged, it depends on the size of the container, man. We have 4 different sizes, so each one of them are different. But on the average, it's $80, as indicated before.
But if it malfunctions because the wheel falls off?
We'll go back, we have extra parts. When somebody reports that, we'll go there and repair it for them.
But can you, if there's an 18-year warranty on the containers, can you return them and?
Not for a wheel, not when we have the parts. If it's an axle, a wheel, a lid, we have those to replace. We've already had the manufacturer take back about 75 that were damaged and gave us a credit for them, so they've already done that. And I just
Okay.
met with the company this past week to go over, we meet on an annual basis to find out how things are going.
Okay, under 204-25, excuse me, 1B.
1B,
Yeah, it says, 1A. All containers are property and maintained in good working order. Damage to containers will be repaired or replaced by a town designee or accordance to the subsection. I do have a question. What happens if that is damaged by the truck driver? Will the resident be charged?
absolutely not.
Okay, how do we prevent, I mean, if it's damaged, I want to just protect the residents here. And how do we make sure that there are protections in place for them?
Right now, on a normal basis, our drivers will report if they've damaged it, and we'll send a bulk crew out to do a replacement for them. We're not looking to charge people for normal wear or something that we do. Sometimes there's a car accident that damages, and we look to recoup the cost of that from the insurance company of whoever damaged them. We had a couple the other day that somebody left it too close to the fireplace, melted the entire front of the unit. That doesn't mean that it's a warranty item. Somebody in Gary's location, somebody lit a fire and burnt both of them right to the ground. And we can't blame them. He had a video on his door cam. And for some reason, the police report was done. We don't charge them because they burnt, even though they're in their it was on their property. It wasn't their fault, so we just replaced them for them. We use, again, it goes back to trying to use some common sense.
204-27. It's 7 a.m. that they're there, that they need to be there.
Yep.
I have a question regarding the summer. It's usually 6 a.m. It changes to 6 a.m.
No,
No?
we're sticking with the 7
Sticking
o'clock.
to 7 a.m. So
Yes.
summer, we no longer have to
We
get
do
up.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's here at 7.
Okay, and this is Monday through Friday, I'm assuming?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we add that Monday through Friday?
Well, if we did that, we'd be lying to you, because what happens on Saturday when we have a holiday? So it's not just Monday through
Okay,
Friday.
so
We also delay
so
a day.
you-
So
Okay,
it's what's listed on our webpage is what we normal practice.
okay, thank you. The next one is 204-28. D, e-waste drop-off. All residents of the state of Rhode Island are entitled to drop off e-waste as defined in this chapter to the transfer station for free as determined by the guidelines set forth in Rhode Island Resource Recovery. I went on your page, and the transfer station here in Coventry is just for the Kent County residents.
No, it's
No?
the transfer station is for Coventry residents. We are the Kent County disposal for e-waste.
E-waste.
Correct. No other area do we accept it. They have to show the license. And if they're
Okay.
in Kent County, they're able to do it. There are 5 e-waste locations throughout the state, and they would have to go to the one in their area.
Do we want to define that this e-waste drop-off is for Kent County residents and that you have to provide a valid ID?
What happens when that changes? We have to change the ordinance?
Okay.
I'm just asking a simple question. I mean, if we make it so definitive that every time we have to make a change, we're either in violation of the ordinance or we have to go back and have a public hearing again to change I think sometimes leaving it less is more.
Okay.
I just can't believe that how much you're trying to shred a good ordinance. I mean, there hasn't been one single legitimate question except trying to shred this ordinance. Are we done yet?
No, we're not done yet. I
Okay.
still have
Well,
more.
No, she's only got,
I've only got a couple pages.
a couple pages left.
So,
You're almost done.
so I guess I read your article in the Coventry Courier, and you stated that a lot of the contaminant, the frequent contaminant is plastic bags.
Correct.
So there's nothing in this ordinance about plastic bags and not putting them in the recycle bins. I would like to see something in there that plastic bags cannot be put in the recycle bins.
If you just allow me, I'm going to go back. I believe we have that covered.
Do you?
Somewhere in here that plastic bags are not. Yes, under 20426B, the last sentence we added, recyclables shall not be placed in plastic bags for disposal.
Wait, I'm sorry.
20426B.
Okay.
The last sentence.
Okay.
Did you find it?
I also,
I guess so.
in the article, and you mentioned it again tonight.
Once again, I have not read the article. I don't.
Well, the one
No,
in the Courier? Oh, I'll read it then.
it's okay.
I'll read the,
Something that they may have called and asked some questions on. They've made an article of. I did not.
Yeah,
We really don't have time.
I
If you
know
have
I
something to read according to this ordinance, and we don't need to read it in the newspaper, we've been here long enough. I'm not interested in a newspaper article.
this
So
is about the fines. I want to understand because
any
it's not-
questions on the ordinance, I'm not interested in
It
listening
is, it's
to a
regarding-
newspaper article.
Okay, well,
So
you-
talk about the ordinance, ma'am. That's it. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. But go ahead, ask a question, but we're not interested in a newspaper article.
all right, well, Kevin,
Yes, ma'am.
what you stated tonight was that each violation for non-compliance, you attach a sticker to the bin, then the resident receives certified letters.
No,
And
I did not say that. What the, let me go back and I'll tell you exactly what I said.
Oh, that's right, that was in the article.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I don't know about what's in the article, but the process starts with a sticker being attached to the container, noticing the violation. 2 letters are then sent by the recycling coordinator to the resident, and the 3rd letter is finally sent certified mail outlining the violation before we go forward to. So there's a certified letter, but there's 2 letters before and stickers that apply before that.
Could I ask, where is that in the ordinance?
I'm sorry, where was what?
Where is that what you just said, what you do with the sticker, and where is that in the ordinance?
Well, I'll have to go back and find it, ma'am. I just don't have it. I have a lot of stuff memorized, but that's not one. It's in here.
I remember reading about the 2 letters in this certified letter.
Absolutely.
I did remember reading about that. But we'll look and see.
In the certified letter?
I think it's 2 letters. In 204-19A, it said, shall issue a written notice. So it starts off, I think, in 204-19A,
Correct.
issue a written notice.
But it doesn't really go into depth as to what Mr. McGee said, so I was just wondering if we could be a little more specific.
There's another place about the certified letter. I have to go look for it. I don't recall.
Again, it's in here. I just don't, if I have to go back and
We
search through
can,
it
we
again
can
to make
look
sure.
for it.
Is there something else I can
I
answer
do-
for
I
you
have
other than
ano-
that?
I do have another question.
Sure.
Do we, let me start off. I was on the Rhode Island Resource Recovery website, and they have Recycle Across America, those standardized labels. Do we, these folks that are not compliant, do we have those labels? Can we give them those labels?
Oh, we can. We send them, when we send these letters out, and I have a copy of the letter that we send out, we send the recycling letter with them, along with the Recycle Across America. We attached that recycle sticker to every single recycling cart in our community last year with the children from, not the children, but the people from Project Friends. They worked with us for an entire summer with a grant, and they attached the Recycle Across America labels to every one of the recycle containers in town. So
Okay, I don't have one, so that's why I've never seen one.
They have been, everybody got one. So whether they came off or not, I can't tell you, but yep. And then we send out notices all the time. It's on our Facebook
Okay, no, I was
page.
just wondering if we've just had those
Oh yeah, we
stickers,
do
'cause
send
I've
out,
never seen one.
we send a letter out, and we send the recycling letter that goes along with it.
Okay. When it comes to recycling, do we have, not just the residents, but do we have town hall, the annex, the police department, Parks and Rec, senior center, in the schools, do they all recycle also?
Yes, ma'am.
We all have containers?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Whether they be 10-yard dumpsters for recycle, or at all the schools, they have recycled containers
Okay.
that they utilize.
Could we add a section to this regarding the transfer station and what goes in the transfer station, the hours of operation, what the requirements are, they are for the residents of Coventry, no commercial trucks go?
Once again, ma'am, I would respectfully say that by making this too stringent, we have all that information available on the town website, and we also have it available on our Facebook page, what is acceptable and what the hours are of operation. But the minute you put this in here and we deviate for some reason, we're in violation.
Okay, if there's nothing in here about the furniture bank that you have now?
No, it's not in here.
How about the recycling coordinator, that position?
That's not part of the solid waste ordinance.
Okay, how about the pink bag collection that we're now doing, encouraging?
That's part of the transfer station. No, it's part of our recycling program, but it's not outlined in here.
How about
because
accepting used cooking oil?
oil?
The grease?
Again, that's all part of the transfer station. We don't have that outlined in here because that could end tomorrow.
Okay.
Excuse me, Councilmember Bacon,
Yeah.
in section 204-35A and B, it talks about the first letter, second letter, and the certified letter.
Oh, sorry, we didn't get there yet, that's fine.
Okay. I do have to say, I am really opposed to the hefty fines and the imprisonment. I really think this is way too harsh, and I think it really needs to be a little more reasonable.
Well, ma'am, again, it's already existing in the ordinance.
And I understand it, but I think it's very harsh.
Okay,
and
I understand your feeling, but we have to make it so that it bites a little bit so people will comply with following the regulations.
And why not go to district court? I understand municipal court, but with municipal court, we may not have a municipal court for some reason, because we have in the charter, it can be removed at any
Well,
time.
today we have one.
Today we do, but as you said, we tie our hands if
I
we
don't see
put
that
municipal
leaving in
court.
the next several months. All right,
But-
so it seems like most of your questions are answered, so with that being said, is there anybody
more?
else from the public who would like to make a comment? You can come up to the mic and give your name and address for the record, please.
Irene Drew, 23 Catawba
Could you speak into the
Way.
mic, please, because for the people behind you can hear you.
Irene
Thank
Drew,
you.
23 Catawba Way, Coventry. So you had talked about reduction in workers' comp claims. How is this, how are they gonna, how is it that you find out that people are not recycling properly? Are there cameras in the trucks? Do your drivers get out arbitrarily, like, I don't know, 5 houses a day or something like that? Are they getting in and out of trucks? Because that's typically where a work comp claim's gonna happen.
Well, I believe you're asking two different questions. One, workman's comp claims would be if they were struggling to pick up an oversized container to put it into the truck. With the automated, they don't have to do that. The only two workman's comp claims that we've had in the 4+ years is loading up yard waste bags.
So they're all lifting claims. You've never had a claim for somebody getting out of a truck and
Not,
You don't
with,
have
not with the automated, no.
No, well, I know with the automated, but aren't these the people that are gonna be getting out to look at?
We have cameras in the trucks. And,
That's what I don't understand.
yeah,
I don't
we have,
understand
we
how
have cameras in the truck, because they see the camera, they see what's being dumped as it's being dumped. So they'll call in, and that's why we get the letters here, go out when they've noticed it. We send the letters out, there's 53 letters in January that we sent out. Plastic lawn furniture and recycle cart, trash bags filled with trash and recycle cart.
actually see it being.
In the camera, yeah. Unfortunately, when it goes into the camera, the ram is already putting it into the truck. They can't stop it.
They can't stop it, so do they stop their route and come back and, or they just put?
No, they continue. And then, again, this is what happens, that they call it into the office, we send the letters out with the proper recycling quote. This is the letter that we send out.
Yeah.
We send a letter to the residents indicating what the problem was, and we also, at that point, send, along with that, a list of what the recycling guidelines are. Correct.
Okay, and the only other question I had, was about just it being, I think putting someone in jail is ridiculous, and I know that that's not your intention, I get
Nope.
that. I don't understand why it's in an ordinance if it's not the intention of the ordinance. That being said, I think district court isn't a bad idea, because that actually puts a little more teeth in it. Because now they're not going to municipal court at 7 o'clock at night, they're taking the day off work and going to district court. So, I mean, that's just my thought process there, so. But those are the only questions I have for this, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your
The-
comments.
May I,
Yes,
the way I look at that jail time in this ordinance, it's just like the judicial system works right now. You get sentenced to life in prison. 20 years later, you're back on the street. But the potential to spend life in prison is there in that sentence. So in this ordinance, the potential, I,
If you have something to say, will you come up to the mic and, thank you. You might just pick it up to the mic, because I want everybody to be able to hear.
Mr. McGee said that the intention is not to put anybody in jail.
but the option is there if you exhaust all other avenues.
You're
then
really
that-
gonna put somebody in
then
jail
that
for
option is there.
$300, so they lose their job, they lose their house.
Well, I can tell you this, if I
understand
get caught
I
driving without a
understand the
license
importance-
3 times, they put my butt in jail because I got 3 offenses of driving without a license and breaking state law. You have to draw the line somewhere.
Follow the
But you
rules.
don't need to yell at me, first of all.
I don't have,
You don't need to yell at me. I can
I'm not
hear you.
yelling.
It sounded like you
I'm
were
hard of hearing, so I talk loud.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. I just think that people aren't gonna take it seriously. I think if you put something in there, it's a suggestion. If you put something in there like making them take a day off work to go to district court and sit district court all day. It's not, municipal court where Judge Capaldi has 5 hours or 3 hours or whatever to do, whatever. It's an entire day. So I think that might be just logistically something that people might take a little more serious.
I would certainly think
And not
that
be so pissed off
before somebody actually got to that point, they would just follow the rules.
You
They
would
get their
think.
notice and just follow it. Maybe a
not
couple
disagreeing.
notices. I mean, I don't really foresee a jail sentence coming, but, I mean, if someone flagrantly tells me, I don't care what you say, then put them in jail. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's the rules. I follow the rules. You follow the rules, probably. I mean, I mean, I don't know.
Doubting my recycling ability?
I mean, I recycle and it's not hard,
No, and I understand that, but I mean, we could make a drinking game out of how many times it says $300 or, I don't know.
like I
life
say,
in prison, whatever.
Consistent to what was already there.
I understand that, and I get it. I just don't think,
All right.
I think you could do
Thanks for
a
your
little better.
input. You have a comment, sir?
Yeah, just quick. Dennis Robles, 21 Duck Drive, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that I have no problem with the DPW. They sent, matter of fact, I go in last year, what you can recycle and what you cannot recycle. It's right up in my garage, hanging on the wall. And if I ever need to get another one, all I gotta do is just go over there and ask them, listen, I lost my paperwork. Can I get another one? And they will give it to me.
I wish everybody thought like
Okay.
you did.
If you lose your paperwork again, you're going to jail.
Yeah. Another thing, you will never go to jail for this here. That's not the issue. The issue is just follow the stupid rule. There's no problem. Just do what you gotta do and get it over with.
It's not hard. We're a community.
Thank
We
you.
all
That's
work
it.
together. Thank
Good
you,
night,
sir.
everybody.
All right, good night. Are there any other comments from the public?
Motion to close public hearing.
We have a motion to close public hearing. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing closed. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, the next item on the agenda
Public comment?
would be public comment. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak in public comment? I ask that you limit it to 3 minutes and give your name and address for the record, please. Good evening, Kelly.
Evening. Kelly Aronakis, 9 Sugar Maple Drive. So I think that you all know I'm here this evening because of the resolution you passed on the continuing contract language. You called it the evergreen contract. A couple of things I want to note. I listened pretty intently tonight. It's been a long night. I do want to say that I live in District 5, and the questions that were asked tonight were very detailed. I just wish that when it came to the school budget or contracts, they would be just as detailed. I think tonight was, you can't respond to me, it's my turn, not yours, thank you. I think that if we take things seriously as I'm taking this, then rather than asking about DPW and yard waste, I think school budgets are more important. So as my rep, I would ask that. And I know we can't have a dialogue back and forth because it's against the law. Next, on the continuing contract. Very disappointed in the resolution. I heard several things this evening. Mr. Gorham, I heard you say that state law takes precedence. Mr. McGee, you didn't want to waste your time with a frivolous lawsuit on something else. I don't know if you all understand this, so I tried to send an email today. But what's happening is these municipalities and cities are not, they're trying to sue individuals personally. The governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate President. You can't do that by law. You can't sue them when they're serving in their jobs. So I don't see the lawsuit going anywhere. I'm fearful that you're looking at spending up to nearly $27,000 on something that doesn't begin with merit, in my opinion. Additionally, I think it's a slap in the face when this council and the school committee asked the police, the municipal workers, and the teachers, and all of the unions to sit and consider opening up their legally binding contracts. The continuing contract language does not cost the town one more penny. You have to negotiate a contract. In this town, it has to be approved by the school committee and this council. Once approved, it's a binding contract, as I have right now. Continuing contract does not give us more raises or new money or anything else. All it does is say when that contract ends, you cannot unilaterally take something away without negotiating it, and I cannot unilaterally get something without negotiating it. It's fair for both sides. You seem to have no problem with binding arbitration that your police have, which unilaterally imposes things on both sides. Not as fair. This doesn't unilaterally impose anything. What I think which is the most disappointing to me is while I'm in a contract as the union president, you want me to open it up because we're partners, because you're gonna help us out again. I can't think of how many times that you two gentlemen have thanked the teachers for opening up that contract and helping out. But on the same token, if I do that, what this resolution says to me tonight, when this contract expires, you want to jump on a lawsuit that says you can take anything away arbitrarily. Why would I open a contract? How can I stand before 435 teachers and 265 SRP and say, as your union president, it's the right thing to do, open this contract, when on the back end, you're looking to take something for nothing? You put me in a very precarious position. I tried to speak with the town manager to explain why I asked you that the time was very poor. You did what you did. It was a 5-0 vote. Mr. McGee, you said that, maybe the legislature will reverse it. Not happening. The Senate voted on the original bill 28-8, and the House voted on the original bill 60-8. Overwhelming bipartisan support. Bipartisan support because it was fair to both sides. It wasn't binding ARB. So I think what you did tonight did an injustice, and I ask you to reconsider. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, hearing none, motion to adjourn will be in order. Motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much for coming out.